County 911.
Honey, I need an ambulance bad. Please.
Okay, what's going on?
Oh, my God. There's no pulse on either one of them. They're white. They're dead. Their baby's here.
How's the baby?
He's not crying. He's awake. Oh, God.
Do you want to attempt to do CPR on any one of them?
They're both dead. It's too late.
Tell us the truth. Who shot him?
Authorities were dispatched to 128 James Davis Lane in response to a shooting incident. Upon arrival, law enforcement discovered 2 individuals inside the residence who had sustained fatal gunshot wounds to the head. Such a crime was unprecedented in Mountain City, a community where homicides were rare, typically occurring only once every 3 to 4 years. The victims were identified as 36-year-old Bill Payne and his fiancée, 23-year-old Billie Jean Hayworth. Their infant son Tyler was found unharmed in his mother's arms, though he was covered in her blood. The ferocity of the crime raised a haunting question. Who could commit such an act against a young couple who had just begun building a life together? The shock of the tragedy reverberated throughout the close-knit town. Many struggled to comprehend that such violence had disrupted their quiet community. Bill and Billie Jean had spent most of their lives in Mountain City, drawn to its peaceful environment, which seemed ideal for raising a family. The couple first met while working at the local cotton factory, where their friendship quickly blossomed into a deep romantic relationship. Their future together had seemed promising, making the circumstances of their deaths all the more devastating. Billie Jean Hayworth was a lively, charismatic woman with a warm personality known for her kindness and energy. Her fiancé, Bill Payne, was equally outgoing, always making her laugh with his charm and humor. The couple was deeply in love, building a future together and raising their infant son. They had plans to marry and create a life in their quiet hometown. Tragically, their dreams came to a sudden and violent end. Their home became a crime scene, prompting local authorities to request assistance from the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. Upon entering the residence, investigators found Bill near the foot of the bed, fatally shot in the head with his throat cut. In the next room, Billie Jean lay in a fetal position with a gunshot wound to the right side of her head. Despite the horrific scene, their infant son was found alive in his mother's arms, unharmed but covered in blood. 2 bullets were recovered, marking the beginning of an investigation that would send shockwaves through the tight-knit community of Mountain City. A bullet was discovered inside Bill Payne's pillowcase, while the bullet that exited Billie Jean Hayworth's head was later found lodged in their infant son's bouncer toy. However, no shell casings were recovered at the scene, leading investigators to believe that a revolver had been used in the attack. As authorities searched for clues, they uncovered traces of methamphetamine residue. Given the prevalence of meth use and distribution in the area, investigators initially considered the possibility that the murders were drug-related, potentially a targeted hit. However, there were no signs of forced entry, and nothing inside the home had been disturbed. Their personal belongings remained untouched, suggesting that the perpetrator had entered with a singular purpose, carrying out the killings before leaving without taking anything. As forensic investigators meticulously examined the crime scene, they began to piece together the final moments of Billie Jean Hayworth's life. Evidence suggested that she had just prepared a bottle for her infant son, leaving the supplies on the counter before tending to him in his crib. The chilling nature of the crime became even more apparent. While the baby was left unharmed, his parents had been executed in cold blood. Authorities conducted a neighborhood canvass, speaking with residents in hopes of finding witnesses, but no one had seen or heard anything unusual. News of the heinous, execution-style murders spread rapidly throughout the small Tennessee town, sending shockwaves through Mountain City and Johnson County. Fear gripped the community, with speculation that a professional killer was on the loose. Concerned for their safety, residents worried about who might be targeted next. Investigators turned their attention to those closest to the victims, conducting interviews with family and friends. They sought to understand the couple's relationships, possible conflicts, and any leads that could provide insight into who might have committed such a horrific crime. As the investigation progressed, authorities uncovered aspects of Bill Payne's past that raised questions. According to several acquaintances, Bill had occasionally used and sold small amounts of pain pills, but he was not known as a significant drug dealer. When investigators asked if anyone had reason to harm him, the response was unanimous. No one could think of a single person who would want to hurt Bill or Billie Jean Hayworth. However, those close to the couple mentioned a series of unusual incidents leading up to the murders. These included persistent, anonymous phone calls to their home and baseless harassment accusations directed at them and their group of friends. The individual allegedly responsible for these disturbances was a local woman named Janelle Potter. Further investigation revealed that Bill had first met Janelle 3 years before the murders. Known for his generous nature, Bill was someone who often went out of his way to help others, a trait that would later prove significant in uncovering the truth behind the crime. Bill Payne's connection to Janelle Potter began through a family member who worked at a pharmacy, volunteering to deliver medications to those unable to pick them up themselves. Bill occasionally assisted with these deliveries, which is how he first encountered the Potter household. The family consisted of Janelle Potter and her parents, Marvin and Barbara Potter. As the investigation unfolded, authorities discovered that the Potters had been living in Johnson County for approximately 4 to 5 years before the murders. Unlike many longtime residents, they were considered outsiders in the small community. Janelle, in particular, led a sheltered life, rarely venturing out without her parents. She did not have a driver's license and appeared to have little social interaction beyond her online connections. Janelle Potter's parents, Marvin and Barbara Potter, were known for being deeply religious and highly protective of their daughter. Marvin, a Vietnam War veteran, suffered from poor health and relied on oxygen, leaving much of the family's daily responsibilities to Barbara, who acted as the primary caretaker. When Bill Payne met the Potters, he helped introduce Janelle to a wider social circle, offering her a sense of inclusion she had not previously experienced. He even introduced her to his cousin, Jamie Curd, and the two began a relationship. Investigators soon learned that Jamie Curd was an introverted individual, and by all accounts, Janelle was his first serious girlfriend. While Janelle appeared to welcome Jamie's attention, some close to the situation believed that her true affections were directed elsewhere. Janelle Potter's growing fixation on Bill Payne appeared to stem from unreciprocated feelings. Unable to have a romantic relationship with him, she instead sought ways to remain involved in his life, often tagging along with Jamie Curd to stay close to Bill. However, Bill had no interest in Janelle beyond casual acquaintance. His focus was on Billie Jean Hayworth and their child. When her hopes of a deeper connection with Bill were shattered, Janelle began to lash out. Investigators uncovered a long-standing social media feud between Janelle, Billie Jean, and their friends. Janelle frequently reached out to others online, claiming that Billie Jean was bullying her. When mutual friends pressed her for details, asking what exactly Billie Jean had done, Janelle struggled to provide a clear answer. Despite her claims, there was little evidence to suggest that Billie Jean had engaged in any harassment. Janelle Potter's claims of bullying were vague, centering on the idea that Billie Jean was preventing her happiness. After over a year of online conflict, Billie Jean, and their friends unfriended Janelle on Facebook, triggering a surge in harassment. Following the social media fallout, anonymous phone calls began flooding their home, often from the Potters' number. Within 24 hours of the murders, detectives uncovered the extent of the feud, with friends recalling how the phone rang incessantly whenever they visited, adding to the growing suspicions surrounding Janelle and her family. The harassing phone calls from the Potter household began months before the murders, with callers remaining silent or making no sounds at all. Friends reported that Janelle Potter repeatedly called Bill, Billie Jean, and others to the point of distraction, sometimes reaching out as many as 70 to 75 times in a single day. The harassment escalated to such an extent that several of Bill and Billie Jean's friends filed protective orders and criminal complaints against Janelle. As investigators took a closer look at the Potter family, they uncovered more unsettling behavior. Local authorities had received multiple complaints from neighbors about the Potters, including a police report detailing an incident where Marvin Potter was found outside his home late at night, dressed only in his underwear, armed with multiple guns, convinced that intruders were lurking nearby. The ongoing harassment, escalating feud, and unusual behavior of the Potter family prompted investigators to take the next step. They arranged to interview Janelle Potter, along with her parents, Barbara and Marvin Potter. Upon entering the Potter residence, investigators noted a state of disorder. Marvin Potter, known for his strong affinity for firearms, had numerous weapons scattered throughout the home.
I'm sorry that those people died.
I don't wish that on nobody. How'd y'all hear about it? We heard on the news.
I mean, I'm sorry it happened, but I mean, that's all I could tell you is they have been harassing the living crap out of me.
During the interview, Janelle claimed that Bill, Billie Jean, and their friends had been threatening her for months.
Why would they be harassing you?
It came out to be a jealousy thing. They thought I was too pretty, that I wasn't from here, so they were going to be accepted.
Despite being 30 years old, Janelle exhibited childlike mannerisms, both in speech and behavior. She portrayed herself as the victim, insisting that Billie Jean and others had been harassing her, further fueling the ongoing tension between the two families.
I carry mace with me because I'm scared. I have been threatened by guys to...
During the interview, Janelle Potter claimed that friends of Bill and Billie Jean had attempted to assault her, emphasizing her role as the victim.
Well, let's get back to what we're doing.
What we're doing right now is investigating a double homicide. Very serious matter. Do you know of anybody that would hurt them?
No, actually, I don't. I feel bad about the situation because I didn't want no harm on them.
How do you know them?
Oh, boy.
Notably, she showed little concern for the fact that Bill and Billie Jean had been murdered. She recounted how she had met Bill Payne and even visited his home.
The second time we went down there, I was not comfortable.
So what was going on that night?
There was drugs there.
Drugs. Cocaine, methamphetamine.
It could have been either one. He had pills. Lots of pills.
Janelle attempted to shift the narrative, insisting that the murders were the result of a drug deal gone wrong. She alleged that Bill was a high-level drug dealer and that the killings were a targeted hit to steal his supply.
Well, we want to make sure you didn't have nothing to do with it.
No.
You're not strong enough.
Yeah, especially with a guy and a girl and a baby. Why would I do that?
However, investigators found no evidence to support her claims. While the interviews yielded little useful information, forensic analysis of the ballistic evidence provided crucial insight into the killer's intent. The bullets recovered from the scene had been altered, with deep X-shaped cuts in the tips, making them function similarly to hollow points. Upon impact, these modified rounds were designed to cause maximum damage, effectively exploding on contact. By the second day of the investigation, a new lead emerged. Bill's co-workers provided a tip, directing police to Janelle's boyfriend and Bill's cousin, Jamie Curd, bringing the investigation one step closer to the truth. Jamie Curd's relationship with Janelle Potter played a significant role in the growing tension between him and his cousin, Bill Payne. Janelle frequently told Jamie that Bill and Billie Jean were targeting her and her family, fueling his resentment. This rift escalated into heated arguments, with one confrontation becoming particularly intense. Jamie reportedly threatened to slit Bill's throat. As investigators worked to identify suspects in the murders of Bill Payne and Billie Jean Hayworth, Jamie Curd emerged as a person of interest. Once close cousins, Jamie and Bill had grown apart in the months leading up to the killings, a shift that coincided with Jamie's involvement with Janelle Potter. Friends of Bill recounted a heated dispute between the two men, reinforcing the theory that Jamie's loyalty to Janelle may have played a role in the tragedy. Investigators brought Jamie Curd in for questioning, during which he suggested that Bill Payne had been upset with him for siding with Janelle after their falling out.
We'll be straight up front with you, okay? You are one of the few people that we found that Billy's had any problems. You explain to me what kind of problems y'all were having.
Oh,
It's our job to ask tough questions. Did you kill Billy or Billie Jean?
no. No way. I couldn't hurt you.
Is there any reason she would be able to take a polygraph examination?
Huh?
We had polygraph everybody in this whole damn county, but we're going to find out who killed it.
Despite suspicions, authorities released Jamie for the time being, planning to bring him back for a polygraph at a later date. Meanwhile, 4 days after the murders, as police continued to examine ballistics, alibis, and the escalating feud, friends and family gathered to say their final goodbyes to Bill Payne and Billie Jean Hayworth. The emotional weight of the tragedy was overwhelming, making it difficult for many to accept as reality. In a touching tribute to their love, Bill and Billie Jean were laid to rest together in a joint funeral, just as those who knew them best believed they would have wanted. Following the funeral, the community came together to support Bill and Billie Jean's surviving son, ensuring he was cared for while also offering comfort to grieving family members. 2 days after the service, investigators conducted a polygraph test on Jamie Curd.
After testing you, Jamie, I know you know who killed those babies. I don't.
TBI agents intensified their questioning, pressing him for the truth. When Jamie failed the test, authorities confronted him directly, urging him to be honest about what had happened. The pressure mounted as investigators pushed for answers, bringing them closer to uncovering the truth behind the horrific murders.
I know from talking to other people in your situation, that way you should bear down on this question. This case is not a hard case to solve, and I'll tell you why. The person that killed Bill did two things. One, the shot would have killed him, but after they shot him, they cut his throat. And one thing that people are going to testify that you said you was going to do one day was cut his throat. Tell us the truth. Who shot him? He who? Who had the gun? Hey.
During his interrogation, Jamie Curd finally revealed a shocking detail. Marvin "Buddy" Potter was the shooter. Jamie admitted that he had been present when Marvin carried out the murders of Bill Payne and Billie Jean Hayworth.
Why did Buddy kill him? I don't know. Did he go in first? Did you go in first? I did. So, Buddy went in first. You stayed there at the store. Which room did he go in first? Right where Bill was at. Did you get Billie Jean? Just when she came out, she came and went down the hall. Did you tell she had the baby in her arms? It looked like. Where did he go? Down the hall. And then what did you hear? Another shot. And then what happened? And he was out. Did he tell you what to do? Did he threaten you? No. What did you say? Bring it. How did you cut his throat? So there you go. What'd you do with the knife? I gave it back to her. You answered this, Jamie. How much does Janelle Potter know about this? He took down.
As the interview concluded, Jamie made an unexpected remark that puzzled investigators. Before the camera shut off, he casually asked about a CIA agent's involvement with the Potters.
Is the CIA here? CIA? No.
The comment left authorities baffled. Why would a CIA agent have any connection to the Potter family? At the time, the question seemed odd, but as the investigation unfolded, it would take on far greater significance than anyone initially realized. After confessing to being present when Marvin Potter murdered Bill Payne and Billie Jean Hayworth, Jamie Curd introduced an unexpected twist to the case. During his second interview, he abruptly asked, "Is the CIA here?" A question that left investigators confused.
How did you ask him about the CIA? Because he says he works for them.
Jamie then claimed that he had recently been contacted by a supposed friend of Janelle's who claimed to be a CIA agent. Investigators found the story highly unlikely, dismissing it as yet another bizarre element in an already strange case.
Have you met this person? Physically, but he's talked to me. Think about what he's saying, James. I work for the CIA. The last thing I'm going to do is go and tell people I work for the CIA. Yeah, exactly. I'll tell you what. Let's type up this statement. Everything you've told us tonight, okay?
Upon learning of Jamie's admission, authorities moved quickly. One investigator, upon receiving the call, immediately drove to the scene to assist law enforcement as the investigation took a critical turn.
We need good money. You won't help us, okay?
After completing the polygraph test, Jamie Curd was instructed to contact Barbara and Marvin Potter to update them on how it went.
What you do is you take and put this in your ear.
Law enforcement took this opportunity to gather more evidence, wiring Jamie before he made the call and recording the conversation. When Barbara answered, Jamie subtly steered the discussion toward the murders.
Hello?
Hello.
Oh, hi.
Hi.
You all right?
Yeah.
Did it go all right?
Yeah.
Did you have a lie detector?
Yeah.
And you passed it?
Yeah.
And they just let you go and that's it? It's over?
Yeah.
Well, that's wonderful. We've been praying our hearts out. Janelle even saw an angel today. And I said, oh, that's good.
Is Buddy around?
Following investigators' guidance, he pressed Marvin about disposing of the evidence, particularly the murder weapon.
You got rid of everything that was from Bill, didn't you? Okay. That makes me feel a lot better.
The call was a critical step in the case, as authorities hoped it would provide incriminating statements that could further link Marvin Potter to the killings. During the recorded call, Jamie Curd directly asked Marvin Potter, "Hey, did you get rid of it?" Marvin's response was brief but incriminating. "Yeah." With this crucial evidence, investigators swiftly obtained warrants for Marvin's arrest and a search of the Potter residence. When officers arrived, Marvin answered the door, but immediately reached for his gun. Law enforcement quickly subdued him, confiscated the weapon, and placed him under arrest for the murders of Bill Payne and Billie Jean Hayworth. Barbara and Janelle Potter appeared stunned, seemingly unable to comprehend what was happening. Meanwhile, police seized the Potters' computers, hard drives, and firearms, searching for additional evidence that could shed light on the motive behind the heinous killings. Inside the Potter residence, investigators discovered an arsenal, hundreds of firearms, including several capable of firing the same caliber bullets found at the crime scene. To establish a direct link, authorities conducted ballistics testing. A breakthrough came when bullets recovered from Marvin Potter's truck matched the caliber, brand, and distinct markings of those used in the murders. Additionally, officers found several bags of shredded paper in the vehicle, which were sent to a crime laboratory in Knoxville, Tennessee, for analysis. Meanwhile, back at the Johnson County Sheriff's Office, investigators interrogated Marvin Potter.
What do you think?
That somebody's told you I'm the one who killed somebody.
Here's the thing. We don't think you killed him. We know you killed him. Okay?
I did.
Wait a second. We have evidence. We have testimony. We have you talking about it on tape.
Me talking about it on tape.
Recording. Yes, sir. Absolutely. Who did you talk to tonight?
I talked to Jamie. He called once.
He asked you this, but he said, did you get rid of everything from me? Yeah. Well, you know it's over. You know we got it.
For hours, he remained steadfast. But as detectives pressed him, the pressure mounted. Eventually, cracks in his story began to emerge.
When you hear people plotting to catch your daughter and murder her.
In Marvin Potter's mind, his actions were justified. He believed he was protecting his daughter from those he thought had threatened her.
They wanted to rape her because she's a virgin. And just so much.
Investigators observed his internal conflict as though he viewed the murders as a necessary act to safeguard his family.
In your mind, you got no other choice, but
No.
This is Janelle Potter.
No.
Did you feel better? Tell me what you did before you tell her. You called her something?
Yeah. Barbara, before you find out from somebody else, I want you to know I was involved in it, and I did it. Some of it.
Despite this, Marvin felt compelled to be the one to confess his involvement to his wife. He was lucid, fully aware of his actions, and took responsibility for the killings. Authorities officially charged Marvin Potter and Jamie Curd with first-degree murder in the deaths of Bill Payne and Billie Jean Hayworth, Their arrest brought a sense of relief to the community, yet a lingering question remained. Janelle Potter had been at the center of the harassment, making the calls and sending the emails. Was she truly uninvolved, or was there more to uncover? Despite the arrests of Marvin Potter and Jamie Curd, investigators questioned why Janelle Potter had not been scrutinized further. Given her role in the ongoing harassment, it seemed unlikely that she was uninvolved. The Johnson County Sheriff's Department and the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation could have easily closed the case with Marvin's confession. But a critical discovery changed everything. In the back of Marvin Potter's truck, authorities found bags of shredded documents, seemingly discarded by chance. This unexpected evidence would soon reveal the true mastermind behind the murders and expose the depths of the plot against Bill Payne and Billie Jean Hayworth. At the TBI lab in Knoxville, Tennessee, forensic analysts painstakingly reconstructed nearly 174 pages of shredded documents. The recovered material included emails, pictures, and social media posts, providing crucial insight into the case. Investigators were particularly drawn to a series of unusual exchanges between Janelle Potter and an individual named Chris. This mysterious figure, sometimes described as Janelle's friend, consistently positioned himself as her protector. Chris frequently warned Janelle that Bill Payne and Billie Jean Hayworth posed a threat to her. His communications extended beyond Janelle, as he also corresponded with Barbara Potter. The emails suggested that drastic action was necessary to stop the alleged harassment, with growing indications that Barbara may have played a role in orchestrating a violent response. Further examination of the documents uncovered evidence suggesting that, just 2 weeks before the murders, Barbara Potter may have actively conspired in the deadly plan. Investigators uncovered a chilling internet search by Barbara Potter. Can a murderer be forgiven? This, combined with hundreds of emails, suggested she played a role in orchestrating the killings. Barbara and Janelle repeatedly shared messages from a mysterious figure named Chris with Marvin and Jamie Curd. These messages portrayed Bill Payne and Billie Jean Hayworth as threats, fueling paranoia in the Potter household. Since Marvin didn't use a computer, Barbara printed out emails and chats, ensuring he saw the alleged threats against Janelle. As detectives combed through the evidence, they discovered something even more bizarre. Chris frequently claimed to be a CIA operative, adding an unexpected layer to the case. As investigators delved deeper into the digital evidence, a startling realization emerged. The so-called CIA agent, Chris, who had allegedly been warning Janelle Potter's family about threats from Bill Payne and Billie Jean Hayworth, was not who he claimed to be. The messages attributed to this mysterious operative were riddled with grammatical errors and inconsistencies, casting doubt on their legitimacy. A thorough examination of IP addresses, phone records, and online activity led detectives to a crucial discovery. All communications from Chris originated from the Potter household. The fabricated identity was traced directly to Janelle Potter, who had created the fictional CIA agent to manipulate those around her. Investigators determined that Janelle used this alias to convince her father, Marvin Potter, that Bill and Billie Jean posed a serious danger to their family. Further analysis revealed that Janelle harbored an obsessive fixation on Bill Payne. Her unreciprocated feelings and growing resentment toward Billie Jean intensified over time. Fueled by jealousy and a fabricated narrative of persecution, she orchestrated a chain of events that culminated in a deadly act of violence. Marvin Potter carried out the murders, but the crime was rooted in deception. Investigators determined that Janelle and Barbara Potter manipulated him through an elaborate scheme of misinformation, reinforcing his paranoia and pushing him toward violence. Their relentless stream of fabricated threats and warnings played a critical role in his decision to kill. This discovery led authorities to conclude that Janelle and Barbara were not merely bystanders, but active participants in the events leading up to the murders. More than a year after the killings, both women were formally charged with first-degree murder. When law enforcement arrived at their home to arrest them, Janelle and Barbara appeared completely stunned, unable to comprehend that their web of lies had finally unraveled. Despite their repeated claims of innocence, both Janelle and Barbara Potter pleaded not guilty to the charges against them. While their prosecution provided a sense of relief to those seeking justice, securing convictions remained a challenge. The complexity of the case made it difficult to comprehend, yet the evidence clearly pointed to a carefully orchestrated deception that led to murder. Marvin Potter's trial, in contrast, was relatively straightforward. Lasting 5 days, the proceedings focused on his direct involvement in the killings. He chose not to testify in his defense, and efforts to present an alternative theory centered on Bill Payne's alleged drug activity ultimately failed to gain traction. After just 3 hours of deliberation, the jury found Marvin Potter guilty as charged. The judge sentenced him to 2 consecutive life terms. Meanwhile, Jamie Curd accepted a plea deal in exchange for his cooperation with the prosecution, including testifying against Janelle and Barbara Potter in their trial. He pleaded guilty to 2 counts of facilitation of first-degree murder and received a 25-year sentence. 2 years after Marvin's conviction, Janelle and Barbara Potter went to trial for their involvement in the murders. Since neither had made statements implicating the other, they were tried together for judicial efficiency. The defense argued that Janelle was incapable of orchestrating such a crime and maintained that Barbara had no direct involvement. Additionally, the prosecution lacked physical evidence tying the 2 women to the murders, making the case far more complex than the previous trial. There was no physical evidence placing Janelle or Barbara at the crime scene. However, during the first 4 days of trial, the prosecution presented extensive digital evidence to support their claim that the 2 women orchestrated the murders. The state's case hinged on proving that Janelle and Barbara conspired to manipulate Marvin Potter into carrying out the killings. The prosecution's key witness, Jamie Curd, was called to testify, expected to provide a clear account of the events leading up to the murders. Investigators believed that Jamie had been manipulated and recruited to aid Marvin Potter. However, when Jamie took the stand under oath, his testimony took an unexpected turn, leaving prosecutors stunned. On the 5th day of Janelle and Barbara Potter's trial, Jamie Curd took the stand as the prosecution's key witness. However, his testimony delivered an unexpected twist. When asked directly whether Janelle and Barbara had conspired with him in the crime, Jamie firmly denied any involvement on their part. Though the courtroom remained silent, the weight of his statement was palpable. The prosecution had relied on Jamie to establish a conspiracy. Yet under oath, he insisted that he had never spoken to Janelle or Barbara about the murders. His testimony challenged the prosecution's case and suggested that he may not have fully grasped the extent to which he had been manipulated. Jamie Curd's testimony continued as he recounted the events leading up to the murders. He explained that he received a text message from Janelle instructing him to be picked up by Marvin Potter. At the time, Jamie claimed he had no knowledge of what was about to happen. He described how they entered the home through the sliding glass door, a familiar entrance from his previous visits with his cousin, Billy Payne. Once inside, Marvin proceeded with the killings. On the 6th day of the trial, the prosecution rested its case. In response, Janelle's defense team, led by attorney Cameron Hyder, introduced 2 expert witnesses. The first was a cybersecurity specialist who argued that an IP address could only identify a device, not a specific user. The second was a neuropsychologist who had evaluated Janelle, offering insight into her mental state as part of the defense strategy. The neuropsychologist's evaluation concluded that Janelle functioned at the cognitive level of a child, arguing that she lacked the mental capacity to orchestrate such a complex crime. Her defense attorney emphasized that she was not a criminal mastermind, unlike those he had previously defended. With the defense resting its case, the prosecution delivered its closing arguments. The state methodically reviewed the evidence, reinforcing to the jury how Janelle and Barbara Potter played central roles in planning the murders. Prosecutors urged the jury to hold them accountable for the devastating events that had unfolded. During closing arguments, the defense emphasized that the prosecution had failed to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Janelle Potter conspired to commit murder. They reminded the jury that Jamie Curd himself had testified that Janelle was not involved in the conspiracy. After 8 days of trial, the jury began deliberations. The defense left the courtroom hopeful for an acquittal, though uncertainty remained. Jury decisions are never predictable. After nearly 5 hours of deliberation, the jury delivered its verdict. Both Barbara and Janelle Potter were found guilty of 2 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of conspiracy to commit murder. Relief swept through the courtroom as justice was served for Billie Jean Hayworth and Bill Payne, though emotions ran high on both sides. 3 years after the tragic murders, Bill Payne's mother took the stand at the sentencing hearing for Janelle and Barbara Potter, offering a final statement on the loss of her son.
Christmas is together. No more sitting around the table, listening to Billy laugh and tell jokes. We go to a graveyard now. Clean up the grave and put fresh flowers. We don't do anything like we did before.
Barbara and Janelle Potter were each sentenced to 2 consecutive life terms. While justice had been served, nothing could undo the tragedy. Billie Jean Hayworth and Bill Payne were gone, and their young child would grow up without parents. A heartbreaking consequence that would last a lifetime. Do you think Janelle Potter truly understood the consequences of her actions? Or was she simply manipulating everyone around her? If Jamie Curd hadn't confessed, do you think this case would have ever been solved? Or would the truth have stayed buried forever? If this case left you shocked, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more chilling true crime stories, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one. Until next time, stay safe and stay curious. 12-year-old Jonathan Foster and his mother, Angela Davis, were eagerly anticipating the Christmas season. Known for his kindness and willingness to help others without hesitation, Jonathan was a child whose warm spirit was evident to all who knew him. His infectious smile, captured in countless photographs, radiated joy and sincerity. For several years, Jonathan had been in the care of his aunt and grandmother due to challenges his mother faced in raising him. From the age of 6 until just before his 11th birthday, he lived under their care, surrounded by family support. However, as he grew older, his desire to reconnect with his mother remained strong. On his 11th birthday, his only wish was to spend Christmas with her. At that time, Angela had made significant strides in stabilizing her life, allowing her to welcome Jonathan back into her home. Angela Davis had recently ended her relationship with Jonathan's stepfather, David, and was now living with her best friend, Sharon. Their household had settled into a sense of stability, and they were eagerly anticipating the holiday season. Plans for a Christmas celebration were already in place, and the evening of Christmas Eve promised to be a joyful occasion. Angela was employed as a cashier at a local food mart, working hard to provide for herself and her son. At approximately 2 a.m., Angela's workplace received an urgent phone call from Jonathan. Due to the store being exceptionally busy, a co-worker initially informed him that Angela was unavailable. However, Jonathan insisted that it was an emergency. Concerned by his distress, the co-worker relayed the message to Angela, alerting her that there was a problem at her home and that she needed to contact her son immediately. As Angela attempted to reach Jonathan, she struggled to get a response. Worried, she informed her employer that she had to leave immediately. While driving home, she made multiple attempts to call Jonathan. When she finally got through, an unfamiliar woman answered. Angela overheard the woman ask, "Is a woman named Angela your mother?" To which Jonathan responded, "Yes, ma'am. Angela is my mother." Moments later, the call abruptly disconnected. Panic set in. A mother's instinct took over as fear and uncertainty gripped her. Was this a prank, a misunderstanding, or was something terribly wrong? Desperate for answers, Angela rushed home, hoping to uncover the truth behind the unsettling phone call. The portable phone Angela had used to speak with the unknown woman was now missing. Desperate, she called her ex-husband, David Davis, for help, but he dismissed her concerns, assuming Jonathan was playing a prank. Fearing the worst, Angela contacted the police to report her son missing. Authorities responded quickly and uncovered unsettling details. Jonathan had spoken to a strange woman who insulted Angela before the call abruptly ended. Adding to the mystery, the landline phone had also disappeared from the home. Authorities expressed deep concern about the situation, emphasizing the urgency of gathering photographs, recently worn clothing, or any items that could help identify Jonathan. Angela's ex-husband, David Davis, soon arrived with troubling news. He had searched but was unable to find Jonathan. Meanwhile, a call from Jonathan's grandmother added to the distress. She had reached out, asking if Jonathan had been picked up for Christmas, but no one had seen him. The realization of his disappearance weighed heavily on everyone. creating an overwhelming sense of fear and uncertainty. Christmas became a time of anguish for Angela and those close to her. An extensive search effort was launched, with volunteers and authorities working tirelessly to locate Jonathan. Texas EquiSearch, a volunteer search and rescue organization, established a command center at a local church. A strategic plan was put into action, mapping out grid areas to cover in the search and identifying possible locations where Jonathan might be. Search teams worked tirelessly, scouring the area, overturning rocks, and searching every possible hiding place in hopes of finding Jonathan. Meanwhile, Angela and David turned to the media, making a public plea for help in locating their son.
Good kid, happy kid.
Doing good in school. Just really excited about Christmas.
Watch your babies closely. Don't let them out of your sight.
A potential lead emerged when Jonathan's grandmother, Mary, arrived with crucial information. She provided the name of Jonathan's biological father, Richard Foster, and informed officers of a past incident involving Richard and Jonathan. Investigators considered the possibility that Richard had returned to town and began efforts to locate him. Upon arriving at the search site, the leader of Texas EquiSearch expressed grave concerns, stating that the situation did not look promising. Recognizing the need for a thorough investigation, authorities decided to conduct formal interviews with Jonathan's immediate family. To avoid the growing media attention, David, Angela, Mary, and Sharon were transported to the Homicide Division for questioning. Meanwhile, Detective Harris assessed the scene at Sharon's house. Despite Jonathan's disappearance, there were no signs of a struggle or disorder, raising further questions about the circumstances surrounding the case. Investigators processed the scene and discovered a receiver for the missing landline phone. However, the phone itself was nowhere to be found. The absence of the device raised suspicions. Who would take a landline phone unless they were attempting to leave in a hurry? With the initial phase of the investigation complete, the focus shifted to spreading awareness. Authorities gathered descriptions and photographs of Jonathan, broadcasting his information nationwide while continuing to appeal to the public for assistance. Any tips, sightings, or relevant information were directed to the Homicide Division for further investigation. Detectives interviewed Jonathan's grandmother, Mary, to gather insight into his family history.
His name is Richard Holden Foster, and he has been in Harris County Jail, so you can find records on him there.
Okay.
During the conversation, she provided details about Jonathan's biological father, Richard Foster, and a past incident involving him and his son.
I'd heard Angela and Richard arguing. And then Jonathan came in there, and when he slammed the door and ran behind me, then I went over there and locked it, and it's like, what is wrong? Baby, what's wrong? Richard barged his way in, and he grabbed Jonathan, takes off, and runs through the fields. So call the police. They come out, take a report.
Authorities learned that Richard had previously taken Jonathan, but police at the time had found no wrongdoing and no charges were filed. This led to a pressing question. Had Richard discovered that Jonathan had returned to Angela and taken matters into his own hands, deciding to reclaim his son? Investigators now had to determine whether he was involved in Jonathan's disappearance. With new information emerging, investigators shifted their focus toward Richard Foster. However, Detective Harris also questioned Angela about her ex-husband, David Davis. She recounted a troubling incident, returning home one day to find Jonathan with visible signs of having been slapped hard. That moment solidified her decision to leave, taking Jonathan with her and cutting ties with David. This revelation raised further suspicion. Could David have wanted Jonathan out of the picture? Investigators now had two persons of interest: Richard Foster, Jonathan's biological father, and David Davis, Angela's ex-husband. A key detail in Angela's account was her description of the slap. When questioned, David did not deny the incident but downplayed its severity.
He had a ball cap on, just like me, standing right next to me. He'd been down playing. They come up, knock on the door. Little girls, the mamas, little Mexican mamas. Girls cut her finger. He beat up my little girl, cut her finger, and I spiffed him. I just knocked his head off. Like, I didn't smack him across the face. I just did like, just hit him like that.
You're talking about Jonathan?
Yeah. I said, Jonathan, you don't, just like that. Just popped him. Well, he's really a crybaby, whatever, so he told his mom that I smacked him.
He admitted to making physical contact with Jonathan in an aggressive manner, but attempted to minimize the extent of his actions.
Just lay out the events for the last 2 weeks, David.
This conflicting account deepened the investigation, leaving detectives to determine whether either man played a role in Jonathan's disappearance. Investigators asked David Davis to provide a written timeline of his actions on the day Jonathan went missing.
So you go over to Sharon's to don't see Jonathan? Is that the deal?
No, I went and checked on Jonathan earlier. It was about 1:30, I was just hanging out, and I said, well, I hadn't seen Jonathan out playing. I'd go check on him and, say hi to him, and I knocked on the door. Who is it, Dad? He looked out to check, and then he was all excited, he gets jumping around.
He detailed seeing Jonathan before going to buy a coffee grinder as a Christmas gift, focusing heavily on this purchase.
Where do you go after that?
Well, I headed up to CVS, and they didn't have one. And then actually I went over to Caddy Corner and had a beer.
But did you actually go in the CVS?
No.
You didn't go in the CVS?
No, because it was crazy.
Well, how did you know if they didn't have a coffee grinder if you didn't go in there?
Well, because I've been in there before looking for one. So I just didn't want to say I went and had a beer.
There are so many discrepancies in your story that it just doesn't cast a very positive light on you, and we have talked about it.
And I understand, and I'm trying to be as accurate as I can. I'm pretty devastated, pretty exhausted, and piped out.
I don't care so much about you being accurate as I do about being truthful. And there's a big difference. You understand that, right?
Well, sure.
Okay.
As questioning continued, detectives grew more suspicious of his involvement.
We use the restroom again? Sure. Is Angela got to be here or she get to go home?
To verify his alibi, they subpoenaed his phone records and checked surveillance footage from the Caddy Corner bar. The footage confirmed David had been there for hours, consuming multiple drinks before leaving. Investigators now needed to determine if his timeline aligned with Jonathan's disappearance. Investigators analyzed David Davis's cell phone data, tracking its connection to a single cell tower with a 3-mile radius. The records confirmed that his phone remained in the same location, consistently pinging the same tower. Surveillance footage and call logs further verified that David had been at the Caddy Corner bar until nearly 3:30 a.m., aligning with the phone calls Angela had made during that time. Meanwhile, 184 miles away in Corsicana, law enforcement successfully located Jonathan's biological father, Richard Foster. The FBI conducted an interview and quickly confirmed that Richard had a verifiable alibi. Further investigation revealed that he had not been in Houston on the day Jonathan disappeared, eliminating him as a suspect in the case. With Richard ruled out, the focus shifted back to Houston. Detective Harris proceeded with the investigation, conducting an interview with Angela's friend, Sharon Annamorato. During the interview, Sharon Annamorato revealed that she had recently encountered an old friend named Mona. She explained that she had invited Mona to a gathering at her house and suggested she arrive after Sharon finished work. Sharon mentioned that Jonathan was home alone at the time and might be hesitant to let Mona inside. To reassure him, she instructed Mona to tell Jonathan that his Aunt Sharon had given permission. If he had any concerns, he was told to call Sharon directly. According to Sharon, Mona followed these instructions, but Jonathan refused to open the door. Mona then decided to leave and planned to return later. Sharon described their past friendship as close, but acknowledged that they had not seen each other for a long time before this encounter. Realizing that Mona might have been the last person to see Jonathan Foster, investigators prioritized locating her. She could hold critical information about his disappearance. Meanwhile, a devastating discovery was made. A passerby walking near a ditch in Houston stumbled upon what initially appeared to be the remains of an animal. Upon closer inspection, they suspected the remains were human. Authorities were immediately alerted. The body was found in a concrete culvert along a toll road, partially inside and partially exposed. It belonged to a young male, approximately Jonathan's age. The victim had been burned from head to toe, leaving the body completely blackened. At the scene, detectives collected crucial evidence. Twine was found binding the hands behind the back, and the ankles were tightly secured. Notably, no leaves were adhered to the body, suggesting it had been placed there after the fire. Investigators meticulously documented and tagged all evidence, ensuring it was sent to the appropriate forensic labs for analysis. The medical examiner was unable to determine the exact cause of death due to the extent of the burns. The body had been charred so severely that traditional forensic analysis was difficult. However, the burn patterns were linear, suggesting that a torch had been used methodically, running back and forth over the body until it was completely seared from head to toe. Despite the extensive damage, one significant injury stood out: a deep bruise in the center of the chest, consistent with the force of a hard punch. Dental records ultimately confirmed the victim's identity as 12-year-old Jonathan Foster. For those who had loved and cared for Jonathan, the news was devastating. His family, especially those who had raised him, struggled to comprehend the tragedy. The pain of telling loved ones, particularly young children, that Jonathan had been taken in such a horrific manner was immeasurable. The loss left an indelible mark on those who had cherished him. The location where Jonathan's body was discovered was surrounded by an industrial park, a warehouse parking lot, and a large warehouse building. As detectives surveyed the scene, they noticed a security camera mounted on a building approximately 40 to 50 yards away. Recognizing the potential importance of the footage, officers entered the building and requested to review the video. The surveillance footage revealed a crucial lead: a silver pickup truck. A large framed individual was seen climbing into the truck bed, appearing to struggle with a container before lowering it over the side of the vehicle. Moments later, headlights approached, prompting the individual to duck down, seemingly trying to avoid detection. The suspect then reappeared in the exact location where Jonathan's body was later found. The timestamp on the footage indicated that the activity in the culvert occurred on December 24th at 6:06 p.m., just hours after Jonathan was last seen alive. With this evidence in hand, investigators now had a critical objective: locate the silver pickup truck and identify the person responsible. Detectives searching for Sharon's friend Mona located her truck parked in her driveway. It closely resembled the vehicle captured in the surveillance footage. Investigators brought Mona Nelson in for a non-custodial interview, meaning she was not under arrest and was free to leave at any time.
You came down here on your own?
Right. I mean, I want to be of help. I'm not trying to hide anything.
During the conversation, she acknowledged the tragedy of what had happened, but denied involvement. Mona also revealed that she worked as a welder, regularly using a torch to fix things. This detail immediately stood out to detectives, as forensic evidence indicated that Jonathan's body had been burned using a similar tool.
I'm a dumbass when it comes to some stuff sometimes. If you're a welder, would you have one of those things called those, what kind of torch is that, where you light it on fire?
It's got a torch.
Yeah. Where's yours?
At my house.
Where in your house?
My acetylene bottles are laying in the dining area.
The connection raised further suspicion and deepened the investigation into her possible role in the crime. When Mona revealed she owned an acetylene torch, detectives quickly moved to search her home for potential evidence. The detail was significant, as forensic findings suggested a torch had been used on Jonathan's body.
What, did you make it to Sharon's house?
Yes, I made it to Sharon's house around 12:30. The little boy was fine. He was fine. Opened the door, said, "She's not here, she's at work." Shut the door. Door wasn't open that wide. I did not go in there. After that, I didn't go back there. After I'd hung out with Frank, that was it.
During questioning, Mona stated that she had been drinking with a man named Frank between 2 and 6 p.m., the crucial window when Jonathan disappeared. By providing this alibi, she attempted to distance herself from the crime. Investigators now needed to verify her claims and determine whether she was telling the truth or trying to cover her tracks. To verify Mona Nelson's alibi, officers were dispatched to locate and interview Frank. Corroborating her statement was a crucial step in determining her involvement in the case. During the interview, investigators systematically pointed out inconsistencies in Mona's statements, aiming to expose any deception.
It's clearly your truck. You're clearly identified. Now, bottom line is, what happened with that little boy? Why'd you do what you did?
I didn't do anything to the little boy. I wouldn't harm a kid. I wouldn't harm anybody the way that they said he was harmed at all. I didn't.
Not intentionally.
And I wouldn't do it. And if I did it on accident, I would call somebody.
And I think you did call. And I think you did reach out to get help for him by calling the mama.
I didn't call his mom. I don't know his mom's number.
But things went wrong and you got the hell out of there. And then you panicked.
I do not know
because
his
you're
mother.
smart. You're a smart lady.
Meanwhile, officers arrived at Frank's residence to confirm her whereabouts during the critical time frame. Frank admitted that Mona had been with him and that they had been drinking. However, he stated that she left his home by 2 p.m., directly contradicting her claim of being there until 6 p.m. With her alibi disproven, Mona Nelson became the prime suspect in Jonathan Foster's disappearance and murder. Detectives conducting a search of Mona Nelson's home quickly uncovered crucial evidence. As she described the location of her acetylene torch, officers found it exactly where she claimed. In her trash can, investigators discovered carpeting with burn marks, a broom handle with a scorched end, and a sweatshirt later identified as belonging to Jonathan Foster. Additionally, they recovered twine similar to what was used to bind Jonathan's hands. A key detail emerged when officers noticed leaves in the trash can, matching those found in Mona's front yard. These same leaves were also present at the scene where Jonathan's body was discovered. Notably, the specific trees producing these leaves did not exist at the crime scene. The nearest tree line with a matching species was located 6 miles away, the same distance from Mona's residence to where Jonathan's body had been dumped. The evidence collected at Mona Nelson's home directly linked her to the murder and disposal of Jonathan Foster, solidifying her as the primary suspect in the case. When confronted with the mounting evidence, Mona Nelson refused to cooperate further. She began claiming illness, stating she was vomiting blood, but investigators believed this was merely an act to divert attention.
We have help on the way, okay? An ambulance is coming. But Mona, you are under arrest for capital murder of Jonathan Foster.
Facing the possibility of the death penalty or life imprisonment without parole, Mona displayed no emotion. Despite the horrific nature of the crime, a 12-year-old boy burned from head to toe, her demeanor remained cold and unresponsive throughout every interaction with law enforcement. On August 12, 2013, Mona Nelson stood trial for the murder of Jonathan Foster. During the proceedings, the jury was presented with the prosecution's theory of events. Investigators believed that on Christmas Eve, Mona arrived at Sharon's home to wait for her. Sharon had instructed Mona to go to her house and assured her that if Jonathan refused entry, she could tell him that his Aunt Sharon had given permission. This seemingly simple instruction would later prove to be a fatal turning point in the case. Unaware of the tragic events about to unfold, Sharon had no reason to suspect any danger. As expected, Jonathan refused to open the door for Mona. In response, Mona instructed him to call someone with Sharon's phone number. Jonathan then called his mother's workplace, but the manager informed him that Angela was busy and promised to relay his message. Upon hearing that her son had called, Angela immediately told her employer she needed to leave. Shortly after, Angela called Jonathan back, but an unfamiliar voice answered. Confused, she asked, "Who is this?" "I'm Angela, Jonathan's mother." Mona then turned to Jonathan and coldly asked, "Who is Angela? Is Angela your mother?" Jonathan's response was polite and innocent. "Yes, ma'am. Angela's my mother." Mona's chilling reply came next. "Well, you're a bad mother." Then the call abruptly ended. Mona Nelson had been drinking heavily throughout the day. Intoxicated and enraged that Jonathan refused to let her into Sharon's home, investigators believe she struck him. As panic set in, she took the landline phone, carried Jonathan to her truck, and transported him back to her residence, where she restrained him. The exact cause of Jonathan's death remains unknown. However, for reasons still unclear, Mona chose to mutilate his body using an acetylene torch. Whether he was still alive at the time or had already succumbed remains uncertain, but the brutality of the act was undeniable. She methodically burned his body, rolling him over with a poker to ensure the flames consumed him entirely. In an attempt to cover her tracks, Mona discarded the carpet where she had placed Jonathan's body, along with the poker and his sweatshirt, into the trash. She then placed his remains in a garbage can, loaded it onto her truck, and drove to the culvert on Hardy Toll Road, where she disposed of his body. The crucial breakthrough in the case came from surveillance footage, capturing Mona and her truck near the crime scene. This single piece of evidence became the turning point, leading to her prosecution and ensuring justice for Jonathan Foster. Mona Nelson was found guilty of capital murder and sentenced to life in prison. The trial was deeply emotional for Angela, her family, and the detectives who worked tirelessly on the case. There was no doubt in anyone's mind that Mona was responsible for Jonathan Foster's tragic death. The devastating loss, occurring on Christmas Eve, forever altered what should have been a joyous time of year. Instead, it became an annual reminder of the void left behind. Every Christmas, those who love Jonathan reflect on what his life could have been, what he would look like, what dreams he might have pursued, whether he would have a family of his own. Those questions will remain unanswered, stolen by a senseless act of violence. What key piece of evidence ultimately led to Mona Nelson's conviction for the murder of Jonathan Foster? How did investigators determine that Mona Nelson's alibi was false? If you found this case interesting, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment with your thoughts. What do you think about the investigation and the outcome of the trial? Let us know below.
911, where is your
Hello?
emergency?
Hello?
Hello, 911.
Hi, I need someone to come to my house immediately.
Okay, what's going on over there?
Well, my sister's been missing for 4 or 5 days. Her and her boyfriend. And we just found 2 bags in the shed, and there's flies all. I think they're in the shed in a bag, okay? And I'm just scared to open it.
Officers from the Clinton Township Police Department were quickly dispatched to the scene, a quiet neighborhood less than a mile from the station. Police were the first to arrive, stepping into an unsecured scene with countless unknowns. They had no idea who they might encounter, whether a suspect was still present or if a body was hidden nearby. It was the kind of call most officers rarely, if ever, receive in their entire careers. Nothing could have prepared them for what they were about to witness.
Sir. Hi.
Hey.
So what's going on here? So, my sister, his daughter, has been missing for 5 days now. Okay. I did a walk around the house to check if there's any trails or anything suspicious. I've seen a boatload of flies behind the shed. And when I pulled things out, we have these bags.
It smells like death in there.
Filled with flies, and they don't look good.
I can't even open it.
What makes you think that she's there? What makes you think something happened to her?
Don't make me think she's there. Don't tell me she's there. I can't even.
Officers soon learned the names of the missing couple, Danielle Marza and Seren Bryan.
So let's just see what we got first. And yeah, I mean, we don't even know what we have. That doesn't look normal.
Let's grab a mask.
With that knowledge weighing heavily, they prepared to enter the shed.
And let's do this.
You want to do booties?
Yes. Just in case. I got seniority. I'll do the light.
As officers approached, they noticed a garbage bag on the ground directly ahead, partially torn open. Inside, they immediately saw someone wearing a black t-shirt. Moments later, a glimpse of exposed skin on the left thigh confirmed the presence of a human body.
Oh, yeah. We don't have to talk. We're confirmed.
It was immediately confirmed. A body had been found. What remained unclear was whether there was another victim or if a possible assailant could still be inside the house. With caution and urgency, officers prepared to make entry. Officers moved quickly to clear the home, ensuring no potential suspect was hiding inside. They split off to the left and began a methodical search, room by room, checking every corner, leaving nothing to chance. The tension was at its peak. Clearing a house is no simple task, every step filled with uncertainty. Officers moved through each room with extreme caution, opening closet doors, weapons drawn, lights cutting through the darkness. Every shadow was checked. Every space was cleared. They had to be certain no one was hiding, waiting to do harm. Back outside, the homicide investigation was officially underway.
Tape. Here, I got tape right here. I'll tie it here, and then we'll get the front. Sound good? Yeah. Okay. Here,
You got a doozy here today.
It's right here.
having opened that second bag, so we don't know. And it looks that each bag looks like it would be one body.
Seren didn't have any known enemies. He was even-tempered, not the kind of person to lose control easily. Like anyone, he had his limits, but he generally kept a calm demeanor. In Clinton Township, he only knew Danielle, her family, and a small group connected to her. He kept their relationship mostly private. They had met at a bonfire in ordinary beginning to what seemed like a quiet connection. Though he had mentioned meeting someone new, he never shared many details. What was clear to those around him, he really liked her.
Look at the little fatty. She just woke up to get Chinese food.
Seren was new to relationships, and at 19 had fallen into a deep, all-consuming love. To him, Danielle was everything. On the other hand, Danielle was unique, creative, open, and unafraid to stand up for what she believed in, even if it upset others. She wasn't known to have any enemies, though it was possible someone disagreed with something she stood for. Still, nothing seemed serious enough to ever justify someone wanting to hurt her. Back at the scene, investigators closely examined the remains. Both bodies were carefully removed from the bags, revealing that their hands and feet had been tightly bound with duct tape. The discovery painted a chilling picture of what had taken place. Investigators also noted clear signs of asphyxiation. Duct tape had been placed over their mouths or noses, and plastic bags were put over their heads, secured tightly around the neck with more duct tape. Inside one of the bags, investigators discovered several blood-stained items, including a small mallet, possibly the murder weapon. They also found duct tape with traces of blood and bed sheets soaked in it, further pointing to the violence that had occurred. With 18 years of experience at the Clinton Township Police Department, this case stood out as one of the most disturbing the officer had ever encountered, unlike anything seen before. Outside, investigators began speaking with friends and family members, starting with a co-worker who knew both Danielle and Seren through their job.
She just ran away.
How old is she?
18. Her and her boyfriend Sarah, who's 19, are both missing. They both work with me. I dropped them off after work on Thursday morning. They've been missing since Thursday at 8 a.m. That's when I dropped them off. That's the last time they were seen.
Where'd you drop them off?
Here, at their house, after work.
That was the last time you saw them?
That's the last time anyone saw them.
The friend explained that she had come to the house that morning to help search for Danielle and Seren, concerned after not hearing from them. Danielle's work friend had been at the house earlier, trying to help locate her. She had been there with Danielle's father, Robert, as they searched the property. Their attention eventually turned to the shed.
Came to the key. We couldn't find the key. One of the keys is missing.
She mentioned that Robert couldn't find or didn't have a key to the shed. It wasn't until later that they called Robert's son, Kevin, to bring a key over to the house.
There was a bag covered in flies. It smelled like death. And I figured out what was in it. So her dad and brother cut it open and pulled the plastic apart, and then both screamed, freaked out, and ran from the shed.
Later that night, investigators sat down with Danielle's father, Robert Sr., hoping to gather more details about the hours leading up to the discovery. During the conversation with Robert, his behavior seemed noticeably strange. Investigators allowed him to speak freely, carefully observing his demeanor and capturing the interaction on camera. At that point, it was unclear how much he was involved or what he knew. Despite claiming he lived at the home, Robert insisted he had no knowledge of anyone being inside the shed where the remains had been found.
Shed. Locked, right?
Yeah.
You and Kevin went in, right?
Yep.
Whose key do you use?
Mine.
At this stage of the investigation, one thing was clear: the shed hadn't been broken into. Someone had used a key to access it. Inside were two bodies stuffed in bags, raising even more questions. Conflicting stories began to emerge about whose key had been used, leaving investigators to sort through the details, trying to determine who was telling the truth and who wasn't. Detectives requested both Danielle Marza's father, Robert Sr., and her brother Kevin to come to the station for questioning, hoping to clarify timelines and gather more information about the events leading up to the discovery. Kevin cooperated fully, agreeing to come to the police station, where detectives conducted a formal interview to gather more insight into the case.
What's your name? Kevin. Kevin, Joe Burns. I'm a detective here. Quit. How's Siren's relationship been with Danielle? I mean, they get along?
I mean, from what I was told from her friends,
Okay.
that her boyfriend would never hurt her. So I figured if, she got hurt, he was with her,
So just so I can get this straight in my head, because I'm not that smart.
Yeah.
Living there at that time, so within the last week, I had you living there, your dad,
Yeah.
Siren,
Yeah.
Danielle. Was there anybody else?
My brother,
Okay, and what's your brother's name?
Robert.
Okay.
Detectives were somewhat surprised to learn about another brother's information that hadn't come up until that point in the investigation.
I tried on Facebook Messenger.
Okay, but you didn't try
And, well, the thing is, I could tell, he caught, drift of what's going on, and he pretty much said he's shutting his phone off. I gotta go charge my phone, and then he never came back online. So I didn't bother trying to call, trying to text. If he's not coming back online, he's obviously knows what's going on at that point.
At that point in the investigation, there were still many questions surrounding Robert Jr. His name hadn't been mentioned earlier, leaving detectives uncertain was he a potential suspect, someone simply not involved, or just overlooked. His absence from the initial accounts raised serious curiosity and concern. Detectives then shifted their focus and began asking Kevin questions about his father, Robert Sr.
Boy's a drunk,
Okay.
and we lost my mom in 2011, and he's never really been the same, 3 kids, we've been on our own pretty much since,
What does he do?
He paints.
Okay.
Yeah.
So has he been painting at all?
Yep.
Okay. So he's been going out to work, but you said he's drinking quite a bit?
Yep.
Kevin explained that when Robert Sr. drank, his behavior could change, sometimes becoming angry and prone to yelling. It raised concerns as alcohol seemed to bring out a different side of him. This shift in personality made detectives increasingly suspicious, prompting the next step, interviewing Robert Sr. to uncover more.
Worry about her. And now, the end is near. And so I face the final curtain.
For you? Why for you?
Because if that's her in my shed, I'm done, son. I'm done.
At that point, detectives were trying to determine whether Robert Sr. was simply an odd character or if he was actively hiding something. The shed showed no signs of forced entry. Someone had clearly used a key. During questioning, Robert Sr. eventually admitted the key used wasn't his, it belonged to Kevin.
And you don't remember whose key you used to get in there?
You know what? My key wasn't on the shelf.
Right.
I remember that.
Now you remember.
Where it always is.
Now you remembered after I told you that.
What?
Because the whole day you were telling me that it was your key you were using.
Because that's what I always use. All right?
And then when I told you that...
No, well, believe me, I've been slept in days.
Okay, well, I get that.
Listen. I remember it because I went up on the shelf where I have the house keys, and it wasn't there. So I said, my key's not there. And I checked my pockets, because sometimes I have it. No, it wasn't there. Because we had to break the damn lock to get in.
Right.
He couldn't provide a clear explanation for why he had initially claimed the key was his. Whether it was due to intoxication or an attempt to mislead, investigators were still trying to determine the truth behind his conflicting statements. Detectives then shifted their focus to Robert Jr.
Where is Robert staying at right now?
I have no clue.
You said Robert was with you when you went to work on Thursday?
Yeah.
Did he pick you up, or did you go pick him up, or how did it work?
No, he picked me up. He dropped me off.
Okay. So he picked you up in the morning, dropped you off at 5:30.
Yep.
So you were with him the whole day.
Yes.
I'm trying to put pieces together because we want to talk to Robert so that we can get his story too.
I'd rather not involve somebody that doesn't need to be involved.
You realize we're talking about possibly dead people here, right?
What stood out was Robert Sr.'s behavior. He seemed to be deliberately steering attention away from Robert Jr. That alone raised suspicions and made investigators even more eager to speak with him directly. The following day, autopsy results were returned, and the victims were officially identified by family as Danielle Marza and Simeonette Bryan. The medical examiner determined the cause of death for both victims to be asphyxiation and blunt force trauma, a level of violence that was excessive and deeply unsettling. Simeonette's mother, Diane Bryan, recalled that she hadn't heard her son was missing. While at work on Monday, she received a call from an unfamiliar number, which she didn't answer. After Googling it, she realized it belonged to a news reporter. When she returned the call, the reporter asked if she was Diane Bryan, then proceeded with a few questions before deciding it was a case of mistaken identity. Later, the reporter reached Simeonette's father and informed him something had happened. He called Diane back, and when she searched Simeonette and Danielle's names online, she was devastated to learn the truth. That's how she found out. Simeonette was a kind and thoughtful person, always sensitive to how others felt and wanting those around him to be comfortable and happy. He had a passion for drawing and often expressed himself through his sketch journals. Sometimes he shared his artwork, and through those pages, glimpses of his day and emotions would quietly unfold. His drawings became a way for him to process feelings and make sense of the world around him. Danielle was a truly beautiful soul, unique, creative, and drawn to the unconventional. She found beauty in the odd and overlooked, preferring spiders and bees over flowers and the typical things most would admire. In her photos, she often stood with her head held high, arms open wide, as if embracing the world around her. She had a rare gift for seeing the good in places others might never look. Her unwavering optimism was one of her most defining and remarkable traits. With the victims identified, investigators turned their focus to finding the killer. They returned to the Marza home in search of clues. Inside the shed, there were no signs of blood spatter, an important detail that suggested the murders likely didn't happen there. The shed appeared to be a place where the bodies were hidden, not where the crime occurred. Investigators then moved inside the house, starting with Danielle's room. At first glance, it looked like an ordinary bedroom. Nothing seemed out of place. But using a chemical called Blue Star, which reacts to traces of blood, they uncovered the truth. Someone had gone to great lengths to clean the scene and stage the room, making it appear as though nothing had happened there. Investigators continued their search, turning their attention to Robert Jr.'s room. Inside his closet, they discovered several blood-stained items. Among the evidence were black duct tape with blood and hair, blood-soaked sheets, towels, and various materials that appeared to have been used in an attempt to clean up a crime scene. The findings raised immediate and serious concern. With a growing amount of evidence pointing to Robert Jr., investigators now faced a new challenge. A full-scale manhunt was underway to locate and apprehend him. If Robert Jr. was on the run, he could already be far from the area. Investigators soon discovered that the family van was missing and no one seemed to know where it had gone. This raised the possibility that Robert Jr. had fled using that vehicle. With that realization, the urgency intensified, and the search efforts escalated quickly. Investigators obtained a search warrant for Robert Jr.'s cell phone records. They focused on August 23rd, the last day Danielle and Simeonette were seen by their co-workers. That same afternoon, the records showed Robert Jr. had contacted a local cab company. Investigators quickly followed up with the company to confirm whether a ride had been given, hoping it would lead to his whereabouts. Detectives identified the cab driver and brought him in for questioning, hoping to piece together Robert Jr.'s movements.
Spoke to your operator. I asked her about the 23rd. You recall going to pick up somebody at a trailer last Thursday?
Okay, I think I kind of do remember now.
Can you tell me anything about that pickup on who it was or anything you recall?
Oh, I can't really remember. Dropped him off at Wendy's. Or I asked him, did you have a specific spot you want to be dropped off? And he said first, I think, at Walgreens and then at Wendy's. And I pulled right in, and very first parking spot, he got out and paid me, and that's all I know.
They headed to a nearby Wendy's to collect surveillance footage from the morning of the murders. On multiple cameras, Robert Jr. was clearly visible. What stood out most was his calm demeanor. He didn't appear panicked or out of place. There was no visible blood on his clothing. He looked like any ordinary customer. The footage then showed him walking to a nearby bus stop and boarding a bus, confirming he was on the move. Investigators secured surveillance footage from inside the bus, capturing Robert Jr. riding all the way to the end of the line. It raised critical questions. Where was he heading? Was he planning to meet someone? The mystery surrounding his next move deepened. During the initial interview, Robert Sr. claimed that on the morning of the 23rd, Robert Jr. had been with him, riding together in a white van to a job across town. But surveillance footage told a different story. Robert Jr. had taken a cab and boarded a bus, clearly not with his father. That alibi quickly unraveled. Investigators later learned Robert Jr. was actually en route to meet his father at a construction site about 45 minutes away. With this new information, it became clear if he was fleeing, he was likely doing it in that van. Clinton Township Police located the van's previous owner and informed them that the vehicle could be connected to a double homicide. The previous owner had taken several photos of the van before selling it. Using those images, investigators created a crime bulletin and distributed it to law enforcement agencies and media outlets to alert the public. Meanwhile, family and friends gathered to honor the lives of Danielle and Seren. Danielle's brother, Kevin Marza, organized a memorial service after her cremation as a chance for loved ones to pay their respects. From what was shared during the service, it reflected what Danielle would have truly wanted. Seren's mother, Diane Bryan, shared that 2 memorials were held in his honor. Danielle's family and many friends attended, which deeply touched her. His school also organized a separate tribute. At both memorials, a classmate brought a blank canvas and enamel paints, inviting people to leave their fingerprints or thumbprints, a heartfelt gesture. That canvas now rests with Diane, a meaningful tribute that felt just right for Seren. The next day, investigators receive a call from Officer Anthony Duncan in Toledo, Ohio. He shares that there's talk on the street Robert Jr. might be in the area. Officer Duncan discovers that Robert Jr.'s van had been spotted in the parking lot of a local grocery store. However, by the time investigators arrived, Robert Jr. was gone. It remained unclear whether he planned to return or had simply abandoned the vehicle. Back in Clinton Township, Detective Anderson is contacted by Robert Jr.'s cousin, who claims to have recently spoken with Robert Sr. During their conversation, the cousin noticed several inconsistencies. According to him, things just weren't adding up, and he was trying to make sense of a story that didn't quite make sense. Detective Anderson was surprised that Robert Sr. appeared to be delaying the police response. It was difficult to comprehend that someone might intentionally withhold critical information during such a serious investigation. Detectives asked the cousin where he believes Robert Jr. may be hiding and are stunned by his response.
Any idea where he would go?
It's in the western part of Florida.
Is it Sarasota?
Nope. Pensacola. Yeah, I'm almost positive that's it.
So the conversation shifts the entire scope of the investigation. It's no longer just a matter of searching locally or even regionally. Now it becomes clear that Robert Jr. might be attempting to flee across the country. Toledo police canvassed nearby businesses in the area where Robert Jr.'s van was discovered, reviewing hours of surveillance footage. Eventually, a surprising detail emerges. Robert Jr. appears on camera wearing a blonde wig, sunglasses, and a tan baseball cap. The disguise was meant to help him blend in, but it had the opposite effect. He stood out. In the footage, he can be seen purchasing a cell phone, likely to make a call. But soon after, he returns to the store, repackages the phone, and exchanges it for cash. Robert Jr. is later seen at a nearby gas station, attempting to buy food and drinks. He also tries to purchase cigarettes, but the cashier denies the sale when he fails to provide identification. Detectives begin to piece together Robert Jr.'s next likely move. Believing he has no one to turn to and is simply trying to escape, they consider his options. First, air travel seems unlikely. He has no identification, and security checks would catch that quickly. That leaves just 2 possibilities: the train or the bus station, both located in the same terminal. Investigators review the bus station's security camera footage from their ticket counter. Investigators discover that Mr. Marza had attempted to purchase a bus ticket under the alias Josh Bianca. The ticket revealed his planned route departing at 11:55 p.m. on the 28th and arriving in Cincinnati at 3:45 a.m. on the 29th. With this critical information in hand, detectives now had a clear timeline and destination to track him down. At that point, investigators had a clear destination: Cincinnati. They reached out to the U.S. Marshals in that region to begin searching near the bus stop and surrounding areas. With their core mission of fugitive apprehension, the marshals were the ideal partners. They work closely with local law enforcement and have the reach and authority to track suspects across state lines or even internationally if necessary. Robert Jr. had roughly a 6-hour head start, and investigators were certain he had made it to Cincinnati. That clue became their breadcrumb, guiding the next move. With urgency mounting, the team headed straight to the Greyhound station in Cincinnati, hoping to close the gap before he could disappear again. Once at the station, investigators spoke with a Greyhound employee who recalled a brief but memorable encounter. She said Robert Marza approached her and asked just 2 questions: where he could buy a cell phone and where the nearest library was. U.S. Marshals deployed several undercover agents to the Cincinnati Public Library. There, security cameras captured footage of Robert Jr., confirming he was inside. With each moment, investigators were closing in. Cincinnati is a fairly large city, and when investigators believed they had Robert Jr. cornered, there was no room for error. The last thing they wanted was to give him a chance to disappear again. Inside the lobby, investigators spoke with a security guard stationed just inside the doorway, facing the elevators. After identifying themselves, they showed the guard a photo of Robert Marza and explained they were actively searching the area. They warned the guard not to approach him if spotted, emphasizing how dangerous he could be. As one investigator turned their back to the elevators to pull up the image, they remained alert, knowing the suspect could appear at any moment. The elevator dinged, and as the doors slid open, the investigator heard the security guard say, "There's your guy right there." Turning around, they spotted Robert Jr. stepping out casually, same tan baseball cap, same long blonde wig, holding a cup of coffee, completely unaware he was about to be caught. His face registered shock the moment he realized what was happening, almost like a scene out of a dramatic TV show. Without hesitation, the team moved in, quickly taking him into custody and clearing the scene before he had a chance to react. U.S. Marshals moved swiftly, arresting Robert Jr. in the lobby of the library without incident. He was immediately escorted out of the building and taken into custody, bringing an intense manhunt to a calm but decisive close. Robert Jr. was transported to the Clinton Township Police Department, where detectives began their interview. In an effort to find closure for the grieving families, the lead investigator attempted to connect with him on a human level, appealing to whatever good-natured side he might still possess. Detectives hoped that during the interview, Robert Jr. might offer some kind of explanation and some insight into why the murders occurred, but he remained silent on any reasoning. Then unexpectedly, Robert Jr. requested to call his brother. Privately, the lead investigator held on to the hope that this call might lead to a confession or at least a glimpse into his motive.
I've got Robert here with me. Okay, all right. I'll talk to you in a few, Kevin. Okay. Hello? Hello? So, are you gonna make this case go easier, bro? I don't know. What do you mean? We're not living there anymore, Rob. There's fucking blood everywhere. So, are you pleading guilty to everything? No, I'm not. What? Why? I can't really talk about it on the phone, but...
Robert Jr. just told him he's going to plead not guilty, and...
At that point, it was frustrating the chance for a key confession was gone, and the truth stayed out of reach. Despite the lack of a confession, detectives moved forward with the arrest of Robert Jr., charging him with the murders of his sister Danielle and her boyfriend Seren. Investigators believe Seren and Danielle returned home around 8 in the morning after working all night and went straight to bed. That same morning, Robert Sr. got up and left for a painting job, expecting Robert Jr. to join him, but he was nowhere to be found. It's believed Robert Jr. returned to the house after his father left, and sometime after, something horrific unfolded in Seren and Danielle's bedroom. Whether the couple was awake or asleep remains unclear, but investigators suspect they were struck in the head and knocked unconscious almost immediately. From there, Robert Jr. is believed to have bound them with tape, placed them in bags, and dragged their bodies out to the shed. This case remains one of the most unforgettable in the investigator's career, marked by its deeply disturbing and shocking nature. On November 23, 2019, after a 6-day trial, It took the jury only 40 minutes to find Robert Marza Jr. guilty of 2 counts of first-degree murder. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. While justice was served, it didn't ease the pain for the families and loved ones left behind. It's a bittersweet resolution of success in the job, but sorrow for the lives that can never be brought back. Danielle's brother, Kevin Marza, says he doesn't hate Robert Jr., but he doesn't forgive him either. To him, Robert is no longer his brother, just a stranger who murdered his sister and her boyfriend. Now Kevin focuses on his own family, looking forward to being a father and building a better future. Diane Bryan chooses to honor her son Seren by creating Seren's Shining Arts, a program that gives kids sketchbooks to help them express their feelings through art. It's her way of keeping his creative spirit alive and making a positive difference in his memory. If you found this story compelling, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more true crime content. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. A possible deceased individual had been reported, prompting authorities to respond to the scene. While en route, various scenarios were considered, including the likelihood of discovering a body upon arrival. Upon reaching the location, a work crew was present, one typically responsible for winterizing homes and later inspecting them in the spring to ensure their condition.
Stand by a minute. You sure?
If you look at her, get up close. She looks.
At the scene, a female body was discovered. Based on her smaller frame and visible hair, it was apparent that the individual was a woman.
What? Do you have gloves?
Yeah. I don't want to move her though.
I was just gonna pour her shirt. Off her collar a little bit.
Look at her finger.
Yeah.
You see her finger, Shane? It's like shot through.
Upon closer examination, she exhibited what appeared to be a defensive wound, consistent with an attempt to shield herself from harm, possibly from a firearm. The injury suggested an effort to block an incoming attack, indicating potential foul play. The victim had sustained a gunshot wound to the head. Law enforcement contacted the coroner to respond to the scene and requested assistance from the Bureau of Criminal Investigation, BCI, to deploy their forensic team for scene processing. Given that 911 callers are sometimes involved in the incidents they report, investigators interviewed the individual who made the call, along with others present at the time, to assess any potential involvement.
So you guys were just here to tear down the garage?
Yeah, man. They sent me his work orders.
Okay. When did you get this? Do you have an extra copy of that by chance?
I don't.
So when were you here previously? Okay. Hey Shane, 4 or 5 days max it looks like. Who all then came with you today?
He's my dad, and those other 2 guys are my cousins.
The work crew members on site recalled noticing an unfamiliar object in the yard upon their arrival. Initially, they assumed it might have been a discarded Halloween decoration or a prank, given that the property was abandoned. However, upon closer inspection, they realized it was a deceased individual. Investigators requested DNA samples from the crew members for further analysis.
Just hold that and let that dry for a minute.
Right in towards the bottom of your jaw, like right in here. Kind of go back and forth a few times. That's good. And then do the other one with the other side. If you can hold them both, that keeps us from touching them. Then if you just hold them for a few seconds while they dry, then have them drop them in the envelope.
Shortly afterward, the Paulding County coroner arrived and was escorted to the location of the body for examination.
Brain matter on the top side?
Yep. Missing upper front tooth. Yeah, her mouth's closed, so. Get a picture of that grass. See that grass is going that way? All right. Huh? Well, yeah, that's going that way, yeah.
Almost looks like there's some drag marks.
Yeah, see that? Yeah, see her shoes are all muddy. So she was drugged right there.
Visible evidence at the scene suggested that the victim had been dragged from the stone driveway into the yard. Faint skid and drag marks were present across the driveway, leading investigators to believe she had been moved post-mortem. The victim was found lying face down with her arms extended above her head, an indication that someone had likely held her arms while dragging her. Additionally, grass and gravel were found on the tops of her shoes, further supporting this theory. During the examination of the driveway, investigators discovered a partial denture near an area consistent with where a vehicle may have been parked. This evidence was documented for further analysis. A closer inspection of the body revealed a bullet projectile lodged at the base of the victim's neck, just inside her collar and over her jacket. The projectile was collected as evidence and was later identified as a 9mm bullet. Recognizing the potential connection to other cases, authorities contacted the Allen County, Indiana Sheriff's Office, and the Fort Wayne Police Department due to the close geographical proximity. Both agencies confirmed they currently had 3 active missing persons cases involving females.
They got a 50 or a 44-year-old that looks really rough. 5'1", blonde hair.
That's her.
It's missing.
She like bone thinny, bone skinny.
Yeah, she's real thin. Yep. Schwarz.
Based on the descriptions provided over the phone, the deceased individual found in the yard closely matched the appearance of Wilma Schwarz, who had been reported missing from Fort Wayne on March 9th. Wilma was known for her generosity and kindness, always willing to share what she had with others. Those who knew her spoke of the warmth and selflessness she demonstrated throughout her life. Her sudden and tragic death came as a profound shock to those who cared for her. The news of her murder was both devastating and difficult to comprehend. Wilma grew up in an Amish community where traditional values emphasized domestic skills such as cooking and cleaning for young women. However, as she reached adolescence, she frequently moved in and out of the church, navigating a path that set her apart from the conventional expectations of her upbringing. When Wilma experienced life beyond her Amish upbringing, she fully embraced the freedom it offered. She valued the ability to come and go as she pleased and pursued the outside world with determination. Wilma Schwarz had been reported missing 5 days before her body was discovered in Paulding County, Ohio. This geographic detail immediately raised concerns that the individual responsible for her death may have intentionally moved her body across state lines to complicate the investigation. Authorities found it particularly troubling that Wilma had not been seen or heard from, especially given her close relationship with her son. Her failure to pick him up from school was highly uncharacteristic, heightening concerns that something was terribly wrong. With a 5-day delay between her disappearance and the discovery of her body, law enforcement faced the challenge of tracking down the person responsible. The time gap provided the perpetrator with a significant head start, making the investigation all the more urgent. Detectives now had the critical task of uncovering who committed this crime and determining their whereabouts. The nature of Wilma's injuries suggested that her death was likely personal, indicating a potential connection between the victim and her assailant. In cases like this, it is essential to gather information from those closest to the victim, family, friends, and neighbors, while also working to identify and track down any potential suspects. During the investigation, authorities learned that Wilma had been involved in a tumultuous relationship with her ex-boyfriend, Daniel Zerby Sr., with whom she had been living. Before locating Daniel Zerby Sr., investigators discovered that his son, Daniel Zerby Jr., was currently incarcerated at the Wells County, Indiana jail. An interview was arranged to determine whether Daniel Jr. had been in contact with his father.
Sir, you've been here before, right? Yeah. You got a key? Got a key? And a microphone.
Yeah. Barrett? Cool. We'd like to talk to you about something. Officer Dietrich here would like to talk to you about something particular. Okay. You willing to talk to me after everything you said? All right. This is mainly just to get some history, okay? When did your dad come from Tennessee? Do you know?
Like I hear stuff, you know what I'm saying? Like, it was before when I got arrested. I had to be the same week before then.
A week before you got arrested?
During the interview, Daniel Jr. revealed that Daniel Sr. and his girlfriend had been living with Wilma at the time. This revelation raised serious concerns, given Wilma's past experiences as a victim of domestic violence at the hands of Daniel Sr. The decision to allow him and his girlfriend to stay with her appeared to be a troubling dynamic, one that may have played a role in the circumstances leading to her death.
I don't know her last name. She used to be married to me. We ain't thinking for last name.
Okay. You know her as Lisa? But she was married to your Uncle Leroy?
Before. Yeah.
How long before? Years?
10 years.
10 years?
Yeah, it's been a
Okay,
while.
but then
I was like 5.
her and your dad became a couple? Okay.
As far as I know.
Do you know how long they've been a couple?
Not really. Like,
Months, years?
not probably not. It was just out of prison. Probably not years. About 2 months.
Okay.
If it was.
Okay.
Daniel Zerbe Jr. also disclosed that Lisa King had previously been married to Daniel Zerbe Sr.'s brother, Leroy Zerbe, further entangling an already complex web of relationships.
Your dad, what did he go to prison for? From around here, what local? It was something about meth or something? Making meth? You know?
Yeah, it was about that. As far as I'm pretty sure.
You talk to your dad quite a bit, don't you?
I'm more hearsay. Like, I hear from my uncles and stuff.
The situation was volatile, involving ex-girlfriends, current partners, domestic violence, and narcotics, an environment where tensions could easily escalate. However, while a history of violence can indicate a dangerous individual, it does not necessarily mean they are capable of committing homicide.
She never said she was worried your dad was going to kill her.
That's me.
What would have... I know you've been in here, so you don't, you know...
I just hear stuff, you know what I mean?
Right. But you know your dad, you know Wilma, what could have happened?
Wilma never left her son. She dropped her son off. She would never leave her son sitting there waiting in school. I know that for a fact.
Right.
Following the interview with Daniel Jr., detectives gained further insight into Wilma Schwarz's history and her turbulent relationship with Daniel Zerbe Sr. The new information reinforced the investigators' belief that Zerbe Sr. was their primary suspect, leading them to intensify their focus on him. As the investigation progressed, authorities received word that Lisa King had been arrested in Cook County, Illinois. Given her close ties to Zerbe Sr., it was decided that officers would be dispatched to Chicago to interview her and determine whether she had any knowledge of Wilma's death.
How you doing, Lisa?
Yeah, all right. How are you?
This is Gary Dietrich.
Hi.
He's handling the investigation also. Looking some stuff that we need to talk to you about.
I tried to help all you get, but then I don't know how to explain that. But I understand I've got a job to do.
I'm not beating you up.
I think you were just a lady that was...
Bad situation that you got yourself into, and now we need to figure out how to get you home.
Between the drugs and this monster of a man, I feel you just didn't have a choice in the matter, and for some reason I don't think you're still being honest with us.
They said, if y'all said if it was different, I would tell you. But it's not. I mean, I can't sit here and tell you something that's not true. You know, I don't know how to explain it.
That wouldn't help our case anyway. If you're telling stuff, just shut up.
But I know I wouldn't. But I would help you all, and I've tried to help anybody I can.
I'm just telling you, if there's something that you do know and you ponder whether you need to get help with that, that's time to pull out that card and use it. All right. If you got any other questions for us, let us know.
Despite investigators' belief that Lisa King possessed crucial information about the case, she refused to cooperate. With no further progress in the interview, authorities were forced to move forward with the investigation. At this stage, there was no direct evidence linking Daniel Zerb Sr. to Wilma Schwarz's homicide. However, detectives knew that Wilma owned a red Pontiac Sunfire, which had not yet been located. In an effort to track down the vehicle, law enforcement issued a public plea for assistance. Within hours of the press release, the Pontiac Sunfire was discovered at a convenience store gas station in Markle, Indiana, just south of Fort Wayne. This discovery was considered a major breakthrough in the case, as it had the potential to provide critical answers. The vehicle was processed by the Fort Wayne Police Department Crime Scene Unit. Upon execution of a search warrant, investigators uncovered significant evidence inside the car. Most notably, the front passenger seat was heavily stained with what appeared to be blood, a discovery that would play a crucial role in advancing the case. Inside the vehicle, investigators found a significant amount of cleanup materials, suggesting an attempt to conceal evidence. Among the most critical discoveries was a spent shell casing, which provided a direct link between the crime scene and the vehicle. With the bullet recovered from the crime scene and the spent casing found in the car, the pieces of the puzzle were beginning to come together. The casing, identified as a 9mm, indicated that Wilma Schwarz had been shot while sitting in the front passenger seat of the Pontiac Sunfire. The trajectory of the gunshot, entering through the left side of her head and passing through her left hand, strongly suggested that the shooter was positioned in the driver's seat at the time of the attack. Additionally, inside the vehicle, investigators recovered a receipt from a home improvement store for recently purchased cleaning supplies. This receipt proved to be a crucial piece of evidence, helping establish a timeline between Wilma's disappearance and the discovery of her body. Wilma's loss left a deep void in the lives of her loved ones, especially her children. She was a mother, sister, and aunt, roles that could never be replaced. Her tragic passing was not a choice, and the impact of her absence would be felt for years. Within the Amish community, her story would be remembered, often in the context of her decision to leave and the heartbreaking way her life ended. Her funeral was especially painful. Dressed in Amish attire, she was laid to rest, a stark contrast to the life she had chosen. The fact that her killer remained at large only heightened the fear. It was a chilling reminder of the dangers that lurked, making people double-check their locks at night and question their sense of security. Investigators reached out to the home improvement store in an effort to identify the individual who had purchased the cleaning supplies. Surveillance footage from the store's parking lot captured a red Pontiac Sunfire pulling into a parking space. A single male exited the vehicle and entered the store, later identified as Daniel Zerb Sr. As the footage progressed, Zerb was seen returning to the counter with cleaning supplies matching those listed on the receipt recovered from the vehicle. He then exited the store and returned to the red Pontiac Sunfire. Additional surveillance footage was obtained from the convenience store, where the Pontiac Sunfire was later found. The video showed a red Dodge Durango pulling up in front of the store, followed shortly by the Pontiac Sunfire, which parked beside it. An unidentified male was seen exiting the Dodge Durango, while Daniel Zerb Sr. stepped out of the Pontiac Sunfire, further establishing a connection between the two vehicles and individuals. Surveillance footage from the convenience store showed the two men entering the store together. After a short time, both individuals exited, and Daniel Zerb Sr. returned to the Pontiac Sunfire, moving it to a different section of the parking lot. The unidentified male then drove the Dodge Durango over to the Sunfire. At that point, Zerb exited the Pontiac Sunfire and got into the Durango. Moments later, a female was seen stepping out of the Pontiac Sunfire, later identified as Lisa King. Lisa King's presence in the Pontiac Sunfire raised serious concerns, particularly given the evidence found inside the vehicle. The front passenger seat, where she had been sitting, was covered with a black trash bag and heavily stained with blood. This directly contradicted her previous statements claiming she had no knowledge of Wilma Schwarz's death, strongly suggesting her involvement. As the investigation progressed, authorities received information from an inmate at the Wells County, Indiana jail. The inmate claimed to have knowledge of Lisa King's role in the homicide, further reinforcing suspicions about her connection to the crime.
Is there anything else you can remember right now?
Lisa says she couldn't understand why he just cut the arm out of the shirt.
His shirt?
Yeah, where I guess the blood had spewed over it. But the shirt, she said, was either in the trunk of the car or at his brother Leroy's house. Do y'all know if that little boy's doing okay?
He's with Wilma's family now. And two of his siblings. Did she tell you what time Wilma was killed? What time of day?
No, I didn't even ask. You know, I didn't. If she would have been here longer, I could have got a lot more out of her. Yeah, that little boy, I dream about it. About him waiting there for Wilma to come pick him up, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not perfect by no means. I've had my share of trouble. But, you know, that little boy needs justice.
If we need you for court, you're going to be available, right?
I promise, yes.
The inmate provided details about the crime that could only have come from someone who was either present when Wilma Schwarz was shot or had been directly informed by someone who was. When a jailhouse informant offers information that aligns with existing video surveillance evidence, it significantly strengthens the case. This provided investigators with crucial leverage to confront Lisa King during a follow-up interview. When presented with the surveillance footage and other evidence, Lisa King appeared to become more forthcoming.
So what happened after that point?
Wilma came to me that night. She said, Lisa, whatever happens with Daniel happens. But that's when she formally asked me if I would be there for her. And I thanked her. Anyway, within the next couple of days, I wound up going back over there. She was in definite fear.
Wilma.
Yeah.
Why do you say that?
Scared to death. I mean, it's just obvious.
So you, excuse me, you two had plans at that point. Might not have been definite plans, but you had plans at that point. In so many words, to get out of that crazy situation.
That's right.
Am I summing it up all right? Okay. So you see her the next day?
Yeah.
And that's when she's obviously fearful for her well-being?
Yeah.
You went there in the red car.
Mm-hmm.
Was there anything unusual about the red car? Where did you ride?
In the passenger seat, yeah.
What was unusual?
There was a garbage bag over the
So-
passenger seat, and I asked him what happened, and he said he spilled chemicals in the car, and he had a couple bottles with him, and it reeked. I mean, it reeked.
And could you see anything other than the garbage bag?
Jacket, like laid over, and a little board was there.
Did you see any discoloration on any of that?
No. No, sir.
Any stain?
No, sir.
What was under that bag? Can you tell me what was under that bag?
I don't know.
What do you think was under that bag?
I don't know. I'm scared to say, actually.
What do you think it was?
I don't know. I don't want to know.
Do you think it was chemical? Truthfully.
Now that I look back or think on it, I don't know. I was scared to look. You follow your gut. You feel, for me,
You're right. What's your gut
you
telling
know, there's something went right.
She expressed uncertainty about Daniel Zerbish Sr.'s involvement in Wilma's death, but admitted she was too afraid to question him. Investigators were unable to determine whether her hesitation stemmed from intimidation or if she was deliberately withholding further details about her own involvement. Lisa King was then informed that she had been indicted by the Paulding County Grand Jury for tampering with evidence. Following this, investigators collected DNA samples from her as part of the ongoing investigation.
I've never done this before, so I don't know.
All it is I'm going to put it back in the bottom part of your gum on the one side, then I'll go to the top. I'm just going to twist it around, then I'll go to the other side.
Okay.
All right?
All right.
Lisa King informed investigators that the driver of the Dodge Durango, seen in the surveillance footage at the convenience store, was Daniel Zerbe Sr.'s brother, Leroy Zerbe. Recognizing the importance of his potential knowledge of the case, authorities prioritized locating and questioning him.
You gotta sit there. What conversations have you had with your brothers?
During the interview, Leroy Zerbe disclosed that he had received multiple text messages and phone calls from his brother, Daniel Sr.
Okay. Looks like he's calling you quite a bit. Yeah. Looks like there's several text messages deleted from him throughout the day there. I mean, it's showing. Yeah, I see it. I mean, to and from. Yeah. 11:05 a.m. It looks like you got a call from him, or actually, you called him. Tell me about that. What did he say? How did he say, "Come pick me up"? Me?
Yeah, he said, "Come to me and make this tires in front of me in his car and possibly put it here." All right. I got there and went to go there. Okay. Got something. He's like, "Well, you want to put it in Fort Wayne? If it's a car to look at," I was like, "All right." I went in there and asked the clerk if it parked the car there. So he asked me to block in the hallway. Hold it there next to him, and they grabbed his little bitty black button wherever it goes. And we just both got in the truck. Okay. Went there and looked around.
Where'd you guys go from there?
We went to Fort Wayne, got on the Coliseum. He was supposed to be meeting up with some guy somewhere. He kept calling. I don't know if the guy didn't want to work or what, but he said it fell through.
At this point in the interview, we did not.
However, it remained unclear whether Leroy had any direct involvement in Wilma Schwarz's death, or if he was simply assisting his brother after the fact. Leroy also stated that the day after he dropped off Daniel Sr. and Lisa King, he received a call from their mother. Investigators, seeking further clarity, requested that he call his mother during the interview.
Hello.
Hey, honey.
How we doing?
Nothing. Waiting on the sister to come get her baby.
You tell me what it is.
Hey, I got 2 detectives with me.
One.
Yes. We're investigating Wilma's death. We understand that you might know something about that.
Well, Daniel had called me and told me that he made a mess of his life, and he just kept saying she was gone.
Okay.
Now, I didn't understand half of his conversation. Whatever phone those people are using up there is muffled when they go on my phone.
Okay. But he told you she was gone.
Yes.
And that's when you called Leroy then? Is that,
yes.
Okay. And that's when you told him, yeah, you probably ought to call the police?
Well, I told him that.
So you were fearful that he probably, something happened with Wilma?
Well, not only that, but I'm fearful for Daniel. I don't know what he's doing. Daniel was acting crazy. I wanted to know what the hell was going on. Where in the hell is Wilma?
At this stage of the investigation, Daniel Zerbe Sr. remained the primary suspect. However, authorities were still awaiting key physical evidence to fully piece together the case and establish definitive connections. As the case against Daniel Zerbe Sr. grew stronger, investigators focused on locating the murder weapon to definitively link him to the crime. A breakthrough came when authorities discovered that Daniel Sr. had been arrested in Auburn, Indiana, in possession of a 9mm handgun. The firearm was sent to the BCI crime lab, along with the bullet recovered from Wilma Schwarz's body and the spent casing found inside her vehicle. Forensic analysis confirmed that both the projectile and the casing were fired from the same 9mm handgun found in Daniel Sr.'s possession. This evidence served as the critical link tying him directly to the homicide. With this confirmation, investigators conducted a final interview with Lisa King, presenting her with the murder weapon.
At this point, that's all we have, but you can make the difference. You can make the difference to make some sort of closure for this poor little kid. If nothing else comes of this, he's going to come to our office one day and he's going to say, I want to see records of my mom. And you know what he's going to see, and I've got them here, but I'm not going to show you, they're too graphic. He's going to see pictures of his mom thrown away like trash.
But what he can see is that his mom had a friend and her name was Lisa.
Exactly.
And she stepped up and did the right.
At this point, that's all we have, but you can make the difference. The gun in Auburn, when they came and arrested him, and you were there, that's the gun that killed her. That's the gun that killed her.
Is that the same gun that you saw in Auburn that you recall him carrying on a daily basis?
That gun shot a bullet that fell out of her head.
And we can show that by
That's done.
science. Right.
That's done. That's case closed on that.
Meanwhile, an attempt was made to question Daniel Zerb Sr., but he refused to speak with authorities and requested legal representation, effectively halting the interview process. While this prevented further questioning, law enforcement remained focused on securing justice for Wilma Schwarz and providing closure for her family. Daniel Zerb Sr. ultimately pled guilty to the murder of Wilma Schwarz and was sentenced to 15 years to life in prison. Lisa King was indicted on 2 counts of tampering with evidence. However, the charges were later dropped due to her cooperation with the investigation. Based on the collected evidence from both Ohio and Indiana, investigators concluded that Daniel Zerb harbored lingering resentment toward Wilma. Having gained independence from him, she had grown stronger and more assertive, which may have fueled his motive to remove her from his life permanently. Securing a conviction against Daniel Zerb provided a sense of justice for Wilma Schwarz and her family. While not every case reaches a definitive resolution, the dedication and collaborative efforts of law enforcement ensured that this case was brought to justice. The confirmation from the Sheriff's Department that Daniel Zerb Sr. was responsible for Wilma Schwarz's murder brought a sense of closure, but it was overshadowed by the tragic reality of her loss. While justice was served, the legacy left behind was one of sorrow. Wilma's absence meant she would never be part of her children's or grandchildren's lives, leaving an irreplaceable void. The most heartbreaking aspect was the impact on her youngest son, who was left waiting at school, unaware of why his mother never came to pick him up. The pain and unanswered questions he faced in that moment, and continues to carry, serve as a lasting reminder of the devastating consequences of this crime. What key piece of forensic evidence linked Daniel Zerb Sr. directly to the murder of Wilma Schwarz? How did surveillance footage play a crucial role in uncovering the events leading up to Wilma Schwarz's death? If you found this case breakdown intriguing, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more true crime stories. Let us know your thoughts on the case in the comments below. Her last words before sleeping were gentle and warm. "Good night, I love you." But by morning, she was gone, leaving only silence behind. A call comes in from patrol. There's a floater in the Hudson River. A single mother was found dead. It was unclear why she had been anywhere near the Hudson River. The investigation into her life began. Who was she? Leaving behind several clues. The car remained parked outside. The focus shifted to identifying who had access to her car. This led detectives to uncover the dark past of another man. Detectives soon realized there was an entire world of secrets to uncover, requiring a deeper look into his past. Even after 35 years with the NYPD, some tragic cases continue to haunt detectives. This was one that would never fade. It proved to be a difficult case to solve, requiring teams to investigate both on land and in the water. The cruise docks and piers along Manhattan's west side are usually bustling with tourists and locals. But on this April morning, before any sightseers arrived, a boat crew noticed something unusual. Here, the great mystery began. On a quiet Sunday morning, a call came in from patrol. There was a floater in the Hudson River near Chelsea Piers. At the scene, a heartbreaking discovery was made. She was pregnant. Paramedics worked tirelessly, performing CPR in a desperate attempt to save the unborn child. Her body temperature was still warm, indicating she hadn't been in the water for long. The paramedics and staff did everything possible, refusing to give up. But despite their efforts, neither the woman nor her unborn child could be saved. There were no visible signs of trauma on her body, no blood, no scratches, no marks at all. At first, it seemed like a possibility. Perhaps she was struggling with depression, or the father didn't want her or the baby. NYPD detectives were left searching for answers. What could have happened to this expectant mother? As protocol in such cases, an autopsy was ordered. A military ID was found on her, providing a crucial lead. Using it, authorities identified her as 33-year-old Lisa Eatman, a Brooklyn resident. The next step was to contact her family, inform them of the tragedy, and deliver the heartbreaking news of her passing. Using police department databases, authorities searched for an address linked to her identity. A vehicle registered in her name matched the Brooklyn address found in the records. As authorities approached Lisa Eatman's address, her car came into view, confirming the match. The sight of her vehicle raised new questions, leaving detectives with even more to unravel. It was clear she hadn't driven herself to the location where she was found, unless someone had taken her there. However, reaching Manhattan was still possible through other means, whether by bus, cab, or subway. The possibility remained that she had arrived on her own, without the vehicle. Detective Vega and his partner took note of the car before proceeding to Lisa's apartment entrance. Knocking on the door, they were met by a young girl. When asked if Lisa Eatman lived there, she confirmed, yes. Requesting to speak with her mother, the girl responded, "She is my mom." In that moment, the weight of the situation became even heavier. 12-year-old Marcielle Eatman, Lisa's daughter, stood at the door, cautious and hesitant. When asked if they could come inside, she firmly replied, "Mommy told me never to let strangers in." To reassure her, the detectives suggested calling a patrol car with a uniformed officer. If that made her feel safer, would she let them in? After a moment of consideration, she agreed and opened the door. Detective Vega and his partner brought Marcielle to the 10th precinct, waiting for Lisa's family to arrive and help deliver the heartbreaking news. The weight of the moment was overwhelming. How do you tell a child that her mother is never coming back? With young Marcielle waiting at the 10th precinct, detectives reached out to Lisa's family, who were out of the area, to inform them of the tragic news. On April 3, 2005, a family gathered around the dining room table when the phone rang. The news was devastating. Lisa's body had been found in the Hudson River. The shock was immediate. The phone fell from trembling hands and only one sentence echoed in the air. They found her body in the Hudson River. Lisa grew up in Philadelphia, known for her boundless energy and fun-loving spirit. She had a passion for dancing and singing, and her presence alone could light up any room. During high school, Lisa joined the ROTC program, following in the footsteps of her father, who had served in the Army. Her military career ignited a passion for working with computers and machines, and she found joy in fixing and understanding how things worked. During her time in the Army, Lisa formed a deep connection with a fellow soldier, a relationship her family later shared with detectives. While serving in the military, Lisa met Marcielle's father. Both were stationed at the same location, and their connection led to marriage. They spent approximately 4 years together before their paths eventually diverged. Marital struggles eventually led to their separation, resulting in a divorce before their daughter had even turned one. After parting ways with Marcielle's father, Lisa made the decision to leave the military and start a new chapter in her life. In 2002, after her military service, Lisa sought a fresh start and moved to the city with her daughter Marcielle. New York offered Lisa a fresh beginning. She found an apartment she adored and embraced the city's vibrant arts and culture, drawn to the endless possibilities it had to offer. New York's fashion district was the perfect place for Lisa. With a passion for fabrics and design, she found joy in creating and crafting, making the city an ideal fit for her creative spirit. Back at the 10th precinct, as the 12-year-old waits for her family, she provides crucial insights to Detective Vega. Through her answers, a clearer picture begins to emerge about the events leading up to Lisa's disappearance. The detective gently asked, "When was the last time you saw your mother?" Marcielle recalled the night before, staying up with her mother, watching shows together. The last words Lisa spoke before heading to bed were, "Good night, I love you," followed by a gentle kiss on the forehead. She went to her room while Marciel remained on the couch. By morning, something felt off. Lisa was gone. Her car was still outside, but her absence was unsettling. Her purse lay scattered on the bed, everything in place, except for her. Lisa's family arrives at the precinct, faced with the painful task of telling Marciel her mother is never coming home. Marciel was overcome with shock and heartbreak upon hearing the devastating news. Tears fell instantly as the reality of her mother's passing sank in. As detectives consult Lisa's family, the investigation presses forward. The circumstances remain unclear, whether it was a tragic accident, a misstep while retrieving something from the water, or an intentional act. With no definitive answers, every possibility must be considered. While speaking with Lisa's family, detectives carefully approach the difficult topic of her mental health. The next morning, Detective Vega and his partner visit the office of the chief medical examiner, only to be met with shocking findings. The medical examiner uncovers a small caliber bullet lodged in the back of Lisa's head. Stunned, the detectives question how such a crucial detail went unnoticed. A small caliber bullet hole, no larger than a pencil eraser, was concealed beneath her braids, almost invisible to the naked eye. With this revelation, the case shifted from a mystery to a confirmed homicide. With this startling revelation, investigators turned to the evidence at hand, determined to piece together a clear timeline of events. Marciel last saw her mother between 1:30 and 2 a.m., the only certainty investigators had. Lisa left her home in East New York, Brooklyn, and was later found in Manhattan. The focus now shifted to how she got there. Was she picked up, dropped off? Investigators needed to lock in on every detail, dissecting the last 24 hours of her life to uncover the truth. A team of detectives canvassed Lisa Eatman's neighborhood, speaking with neighbors and gathering any possible leads. The K9 unit was brought in to track her scent, starting from her apartment and moving through the streets. The trail led a few blocks before abruptly stopping, suggesting she had entered a vehicle and was taken from that spot. As the investigation intensified, New York City's press quickly picked up on the tragic case. Headlines like Hudson River Horror dominated the pages of the New York Daily News, spreading word of the unsettling discovery. For detectives, Lisa's car parked outside her home remained a crucial piece of the puzzle. However, one key detail stood out: the absence of her car keys. Finding them became a priority, as their location could reveal critical clues about her final moments. To determine if Lisa's car played a role in the case, investigators secured a search warrant and had the vehicle towed to the crime lab. There, forensic experts meticulously examined it for any potential evidence that could shed light on the mystery. Investigators focused on collecting any possible evidence from the vehicle: hair, fibers, fingerprints, anything that could reveal who had access to Lisa's car and had been in close proximity to her. While awaiting the crime lab's findings, detectives investigate Lisa's life, relationships, and potential motives, searching for any signs of jealousy or past conflicts. One of the most pressing questions in the investigation was impossible to ignore. Lisa was pregnant. Determining the identity of the father became a critical focus for detectives. Detectives discovered that during the summer of 2004, Lisa became pregnant with her second child. When detectives learn that the unborn baby's father is absent, their focus shifts to the person providing this information. Lisa's family identified a possible father, pointing to a boyfriend she had been involved with at the time. The baby's father was believed to be Roscoe Glinton. Though little was known about him, speaking with him became a priority for investigators. Investigators discovered that Roscoe Glinton was a New York City employee, working for the Department of Sanitation. Detective Tony Vega contacts the 42-year-old and requests him to come in for an interview. Roscoe arrives at the precinct, unaware of the reason for his summons. As he sits down, he asks, "What is this about?" Detective Vega offers him a drink, and he accepts a cup of water. After a brief pause, the detective delivers the grim news: Lisa Eatman was found dead, floating in the Hudson River. He then brings up a critical detail: there are claims that you might be the father of her unborn child. Roscoe appears visibly shaken by the news, struggling to process the reality of Lisa's death. Despite his distress, he remains open about their relationship, willingly sharing details with the detectives. Roscoe informed detectives that he met Lisa at work, where they quickly connected and exchanged numbers. Their relationship progressed rapidly, becoming serious as they bonded over the shared experience of single parenthood. When Marciel first met Roscoe, he came across as a kind and genuine person. He treated both her and Lisa like family, creating a warm and supportive environment. His care extended to his own children as well, making it feel more like a true family setting, rather than just someone with a romantic interest in her mother. During the interview, Roscoe provides detectives with additional insight into his relationship with Lisa. He acknowledges that they had dated but had ended things months ago. When questioned about her pregnancy, he confirms that Lisa had mentioned he might be the father but expresses doubt, stating that she had other relationships and the father could be someone else. While Roscoe's claim about Lisa seeing someone else might hold some truth, detectives remain skeptical. Investigators press him further, demanding details about his whereabouts on the night of Lisa's murder. Roscoe claims he spent the night out with co-workers from his sanitation depot, having a few drinks. According to him, he was with them the entire time and didn't return home until around 4 or 5 a.m. He insists that speaking to him is a waste of time, suggesting that Lisa had been involved with a neighbor near her home. He urges detectives to consider that lead instead. He stands firm on his story, claiming he had no reason to harm Lisa. With no evidence to hold him, he is free to go, unaware that he has just provided detectives with a crucial lead. As Roscoe leaves, he unknowingly leaves behind his cup, a golden opportunity for investigators. The cup is immediately sent to the police lab for DNA testing. If the DNA confirms he's not the father, it doesn't rule him out as a suspect. But if he is, the level of scrutiny intensifies. While awaiting the DNA results, Detective Vega works to verify Roscoe's alibi, while other detectives track down the man Roscoe claimed was the real father of Lisa's baby and possibly her killer. The search for the mystery boyfriend didn't take long. He was closer than expected. While detectives were at Lisa's home, a man arrived unexpectedly. Informed of Lisa Eatman's death, he reacted with shock, claiming, "How could that be? I just borrowed her car last night." As he revealed Lisa's car keys, detectives exchanged knowing glances. This had to be their person of interest. While interviewing Roscoe Glinton, detectives learned that Lisa may have had a more recent romantic partner, one who could be the father of her child. Fortunately for investigators, this alleged boyfriend arrived at Lisa's home while officers were securing the property. The search for Lisa's car keys led detectives to an unexpected breakthrough. The man at her doorstep not only had the missing keys but also revealed a new lead. He admitted to having a relationship with Lisa, though not a steady one, confirming that they had been romantically involved. The new mystery boyfriend appeared genuinely shocked by the news of Lisa's death. However, he confirmed that he had seen her the previous Saturday night, making him one of the few known individuals, aside from Marciel, who had last seen Lisa alive. The mystery boyfriend explained that the last time he saw Lisa was the night before he went to work. He had car trouble and called her to borrow her car, a favor she had allowed him in the past. Lisa always told him, "You can borrow my car, no problem, just bring me the keys the next day." He took the keys, went to work, and returned them the following day. It was then, when he arrived to return the keys, that he found police and detectives at Lisa's apartment. The crime lab had not yet finished processing Lisa's car, but her family confirmed her friend's story. Lisa often helped him out with Marciel, and it was common for him to borrow her car. During the interview, the man stated that he worked the midnight shift until 8 in the morning, then returned the car and parked it. That was his alibi. However, Lisa's neighbor, who was one of the last people to see her alive, was also a potential boyfriend and had her car. With the car in his possession, he quickly became a prime suspect. The team grew more eager to receive the lab results on Lisa's car. If any trace of evidence linked her friend to the murder, the detectives would have their prime suspect. Over the next several days, while waiting for the lab results, some detectives followed up on Roscoe Glinton's alibi to verify his whereabouts during Lisa's murder. Roscoe claimed that he was at a going-away party for a co-worker that night, and video footage from the bar confirmed that he was there with his colleagues, having a good time. His alibi seemed solid. While waiting for the results of Roscoe's DNA paternity test, the team refocused their attention on Lisa's other potential partner, the one Roscoe insisted was the baby's father. Roscoe mentioned that he believed Lisa was seeing another man, a neighbor who lived near her. Detectives discovered that Lisa's friend, an employee at the New York City Port Authority, worked at a midtown Manhattan bus terminal located suspiciously close to where Lisa's body was found. After further investigation, they confirmed that he had been at work on the night she was killed. Lisa's friend was confirmed to be at his job, with video footage and clock-in records supporting his alibi. Meanwhile, the crime lab completed their search of Lisa's car, which he had borrowed. They checked for DNA, bloodstains, and any other evidence, but the car came back clean. Nothing was found. With the lab results and verification of his alibi, detectives were certain that Lisa's neighborhood boyfriend was not involved. However, they still had no solid evidence linking Roscoe to the crime either. A few days into the investigation, detectives get a break when Lisa's cell phone logs arrive at the 10th precinct. The records show a call made to Lisa at 3 a.m. from a payphone at a gas station. The use of a payphone instead of a personal cell phone raises suspicions, hinting at an attempt to cover one's tracks. What makes this even more suspicious is that the payphone was located just a few blocks from Lisa's home. Once the detectives received the news about the payphone, they exchanged looks. It was clear that was the last call Lisa ever received. She had spoken to the person on the other end, meaning she knew them. At that moment, the detectives were certain the person who made that call was the main suspect. After Lisa Eatman's cell phone logs revealed a mysterious 3 a.m. call from a nearby gas station, NYPD detectives were eager to investigate their strongest lead yet. A team was immediately sent to the gas station to search for any surveillance footage, as well as to check the surrounding buildings, homes, and businesses for any additional leads. Unfortunately, no video footage was found to confirm anyone's presence at the gas station, leading to yet another dead end. Despite this setback, the team remained focused on their primary goal, seeking justice for Lisa and her unborn child. And as the investigation continued, Lisa's family in Philadelphia laid her to rest, 1 week after her tragic murder. The pain was overwhelming. No one should ever have wanted to harm her in such a cruel way. Her unborn child never got the chance to take their first breath, leaving the family devastated by the loss. In their pursuit of new leads, the NYPD reaches out to other New York City law enforcement agencies. Soon enough, detectives catch a big break. They receive a call from the DEA, revealing that the agency had been running its own investigation on the same block where the bar was located, where Roscoe and his co-workers had been partying. The NYPD's branch of the DEA was conducting an unrelated operation and just so happened to be surveilling the same area. Fortunately for the investigation, Lisa Eatman's case had become a topic of discussion among various New York City law enforcement agencies. The DEA reached out, offering their surveillance footage of the block, informing the detectives that they had been there that night. This unexpected connection gave the investigation a crucial new lead. During the interview, Roscoe claims he arrived at the bar around 12 or 12:30 at night and stayed there for hours with his colleagues. However, the DEA surveillance footage tells a different story, showing Roscoe leaving the bar much earlier. The big question now was, where did he go after that? Investigators needed to find another way to dig deeper into his movements and piece together the next part of the puzzle. Detectives decide to turn to an unexpected source for answers, Mrs. Glinton. Through their interviews, they learned that Roscoe was married, which introduced a new dynamic. This revelation could potentially provide a motive, one that might explain why he would want to get rid of his pregnant girlfriend. Roscoe had been open with Lisa about being widowed by his first wife, but he hadn't been as transparent about having remarried. Initially, Lisa had no idea that Roscoe was married, though she eventually found out, and it was after discovering she was pregnant. Despite being married, Roscoe continued his relationship with Lisa. Detectives eventually met his wife, and during their conversation, she revealed that she didn't know Lisa personally. She had only heard about her when she saw the news and was shocked to learn that Roscoe could possibly be the father of Lisa's child. Roscoe's wife was firm in her belief that he wouldn't be involved in Lisa's death. She stood by him without question, her loyalty unwavering. However, despite her strong support, she did admit to Detective Vega that Roscoe had been acting strangely just a few nights prior. This admission raised suspicions, adding another layer to the investigation. Roscoe's wife revealed that on the night Lisa went missing, he went out to a bar in the city with his coworkers. She grew concerned when he stayed out late, repeatedly calling him as she knew they needed to drive to Pennsylvania for a family barbecue the next day. When Roscoe finally came home early in the morning, she confronted him, saying, "I must have called you over 100 times." His response was simple. "Oh, I was at the bar with the fellas." It was so noisy. His explanation seemed off, adding more uncertainty to his alibi. Roscoe's wife noticed he seemed agitated at the family barbecue and wanted to leave early. On the drive back, he insisted on stopping by the sanitation garage to pick something up, but later drove past it, saying he would get it on Monday. This unusual behavior raised suspicions. Lisa's body was found just half a mile from where Roscoe worked, which raised red flags. The proximity made detectives think, this is too close for comfort. The NYPD investigates a new lead from Roscoe Glinton's wife, shedding light on his whereabouts the night of Lisa's murder. Meanwhile, as detectives continued speaking with people in Lisa's circle, one of her friends revealed a shocking claim. "Roscoe Glinton did it. Roscoe Glinton killed her. We told her to stay away from that man." They then shared a story explaining that they had heard Roscoe was involved in the disappearance of his first wife. Lisa Eatman's friend revealed that Roscoe Glinton had a dark past. With this new information, detectives shifted their focus entirely to uncovering as much as possible about him. They soon realized they had to delve into a whole new layer of investigation, exploring Roscoe's history and potential involvement in more than just Lisa's murder. 7 years earlier, Roscoe's first wife, Deborah, had gone missing in Newburgh, about an hour and a half north of New York. Detectives reached out to the Newburgh Police Department, where an officer quickly answered. They asked about Roscoe Glinton, hoping to uncover more about his past. Detective Vega learns that on June 20th, 1998, the dentist office where Deborah Glinton worked called the police after their dependable assistant failed to show up for her shift. It was revealed that Roscoe was the primary suspect in the disappearance of Deborah Glinton. Investigators in Newburgh conducted extensive searches, but despite their efforts, they found no trace of her. Shortly after, Roscoe Glinton moved to Brooklyn with his 3 children to start fresh, all while insisting he had no involvement in his wife's disappearance. Deborah Glinton seemed to have vanished without a trace until an unexpected discovery on November 24, 2001. Approximately 3 years later, her remains were discovered by a hunter along the New York State Thruway. Deborah Glinton was identified through her dental records. When authorities informed Roscoe about the discovery of her remains, he shut down and immediately called his lawyer, preventing further questioning. The medical examiner in upstate New York couldn't determine the cause of death due to insufficient evidence. As a result, they were unable to charge Roscoe with murder, as it was unclear whether Deborah's death was accidental or a homicide, and Roscoe was never charged. While Deborah's remains were found, the cause of death was unclear. As investigators, it's important not to let past cases distract us. Our focus was on finding out who killed Lisa Eatman. Back in Manhattan, the NYPD detectives were more determined than ever to solve the case. With their top-notch equipment and expertise, the department earned its reputation as the finest in the field. With Roscoe's cell phone geolocation data in hand, detectives were able to track his movements the night Lisa Eatman was murdered. They recovered all the locations where his phone had pinged during that critical time, revealing dozens of missed calls from his wife. Each ignored call left a digital footprint, allowing investigators to trace his phone's journey. It moved from the bar in Manhattan, where he was with co-workers, all the way to central Brooklyn, near Lisa's home. Roscoe's cell phone pings at the same location as the payphone, where Lisa received her last call. He stays there for a while before the phone's signals lead investigators back into the city, ultimately placing him near the sanitation depot on the waterfront. With the new information, a few detectives head to Roscoe's job at the sanitation department to speak with his colleagues. They quickly learned that Roscoe was known for leaving things on the ground, but one co-worker noted something unusual. Roscoe was scrubbing a balcony area with a barbecue grill, making an extra effort to keep it clean. The co-worker led detectives to the spot, where they discovered a railing overlooking the Hudson River. Realizing the significance, the detectives immediately secured the area as a crime scene. Detectives quickly called the crime scene unit to conduct a thorough search for any evidence. Suspecting that a weapon might have been discarded into the Hudson River, they also alerted the NYPD scuba team. The team dove into the water and conducted an extensive search, but after hours of looking, they came up empty-handed. Despite the absence of a murder weapon, the crime scene unit made a crucial discovery: trace evidence of blood on the concrete deck outside the sanitation depot. A small blood stain was carefully chiseled out and sent for a rush DNA analysis. The test results came back with a match to Lisa, confirming that she had been there. On April 22nd, after 2 weeks of thorough investigation, the team gathered enough evidence to arrest Roscoe Glinton for the murder of Lisa Eatman. The homicide unit apprehended him at his appointment. Initially, he hesitated to come out, but eventually complied without any resistance. The arrest brought a sense of relief, knowing that Roscoe was finally held accountable for Lisa's death. It provided closure not only for Lisa's family, but also for Marseille, who had been left with so many unanswered questions. Despite their relief, Lisa's family remains confused about Roscoe Glinton's motives. They believe he may have killed Lisa to prevent his wife from discovering the truth about the baby. At the trial, the prosecution argues that Roscoe was unwilling to provide for another child, especially one he had repeatedly denied was his. During the trial, the district attorney submits DNA evidence to confirm if Roscoe is the father of Lisa's unborn child. The results came back with a 99.9% match, confirming that Roscoe was indeed the father. Roscoe never cooperates or confesses to the crime, but the police develop a theory. They believe that Roscoe called Lisa and said, "Meet me when I get to your door. Come with me to the sanitation garage, and I'll give you money for the baby." Lisa, trusting him, left her purse, keys, and daughter behind, thinking it would just be a quick ride for whatever he had promised. Ultimately, it was the data from all the ignored phone calls from his wife that sealed his fate. To the detectives, Roscoe Glinton appeared to be someone who cared only about himself. He thought he was clever enough to get away with the crime, but he made critical mistakes along the way. In the end, the only ones who truly know what happened that night are Roscoe and Lisa. On November 21st, 2006, Roscoe Glinton was found guilty of second-degree murder and sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. However, Lisa's family felt that the sentence wasn't enough to truly bring justice for her and the life that was taken. Unfortunately, Roscoe was only charged with the murder of Lisa, as New York law does not allow charges to be brought for the death of an unborn baby. Marciel reflects on the challenging journey of coping with the loss, saying, "It's been tough, just trying to cope and hold on to the good memories of her. I kept a lot of her things, like the coffee table we shared our last dinner on. I still have it with me today. Over the years, it's gotten a little easier, but it's been a hard ride. I don't think the pain will ever completely heal. I just wish she was here with me. I miss her so much, and I love her." If you found this story compelling, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more true crime content. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. A once happy and united family suddenly fell apart, ending their harmony in an instant. A homicide occurred, 15 stab wounds, a brutal and violent death. With Staten Island's low crime rate, the NYPD faced mounting pressure to crack the case swiftly. It's an uphill battle. No video, no witnesses, no murder weapon. The only way forward is to uncover the details of her life. The computer searches painted a troubling picture. It was a chilling encounter with pure evil. Staten Island may be overlooked, but even in New York's quietest corner, the pursuit of justice never rests. In 2012, a beloved school teacher's home turned into the scene of an unthinkable crime. For the NYPD officers who lived and served in this close-knit community, the case hit close to home, and they were relentless in their pursuit of justice.
911 operator 2378 was emergency.
I just came home. My wife is dead. Oh my God, I think my house was robbed.
On July 5th, 2012, a call came in reporting a homicide in the jurisdiction, assigning the lead investigator to the case. The NYPD on Staten Island has a strong personal stake in the community, as many detectives and officers live there. Within minutes, officers rushed to the home of Simeonette and Jonathan Crupi, a married couple and dedicated school teachers. A crowd gathered on the north side of the crime scene tape as curious neighbors watched anxiously, eager to understand what had happened. Investigators quickly questioned the distraught 911 caller, 30-year-old Jonathan Crupi, Simeonette's husband. He claimed to have left the house around 7:30 a.m., spent the day running errands, and had not returned home since. Jonathan explained that he and Simeonette, both teachers on summer break, had a routine. That morning, he said, she was still asleep when he got up, but he briefly woke her to share his plans before leaving for the day. Upon returning home, Jonathan couldn't remember whether the door was locked or unlocked when he turned the key. Jonathan entered the house and discovered his wife lying dead on the floor before immediately calling 911. He stated that she was alive when he left, but was gone by the time he returned around 1:30 p.m. With a preliminary time frame for the homicide established, investigators escorted him to the 122nd precinct for further questioning. Upon entering the house, officers found Simeonette Mapes lying in the foyer, her arms spread out. She had suffered multiple stab wounds, marking a brutal and tragic scene. She was found lying at the bottom of the stairs, near a broken door gate. The damage suggested she had been pushed down the stairs, crashing through the gate before ultimately losing her life in the foyer. As Simeonette's body was sent for an autopsy, investigators remained at the scene, meticulously searching for evidence. The house was in complete disarray, far beyond the usual signs of a break-in. Mattresses were flipped over, suggesting someone was searching for something specific. For investigators familiar with countless burglary cases, the excessive mess appeared staged. There were no signs of forced entry, but the backsliding glass door was slightly open, about 2 to 3 inches. Crime scene investigators examined the door for fingerprints and swabbed the handle for DNA evidence. The scene was suddenly disrupted by the arrival of Simeonette's mother, overwhelmed with grief after receiving a series of frantic calls from her son-in-law, Jonathan.
Oh my God, Teresa, pick up your phone!
Around 1:50 in the afternoon, Jonathan made several frantic calls to Simeonette's mother,
It's an emergency, the house is up!
delivering the devastating news Simeonette was dead.
Oh my God! Oh, call me back, please!
Overcome with shock and grief, she collapsed to her knees before struggling to make her way to the car, desperate to reach her daughter. As she rushed toward the house, detectives immediately stopped her, refusing to let her inside. Desperate for answers, she clung to the hope that there had been a mistake, that the victim wasn't Simeonette. From the moment Simeonette was born, she was a cherished gift. More than just a daughter, she was a best friend. Her laughter was infectious. Anyone in the room couldn't help but join in, even without knowing why. She embraced life with joy, loved to have fun, and found happiness in traveling. At any gathering, she would dance freely, never afraid to let loose and enjoy the moment. Simeonette and Jonathan were a lively, light-hearted couple who could make anyone laugh. They shared a love for singing, dancing, and bringing joy to those around them. Their bond was strengthened by a shared passion for teaching, with both striving toward the same goals in their careers. Simeonette dedicated her career to teaching in low-income areas, believing it was her way of making the world a better place. Who could have done this? Who would want to hurt someone as kind and full of life as Simeonette? Across town, the district attorney's office quickly mobilized. On Staten Island, a system was in place where prosecutors connected with the lead detective within hours of a case unfolding. Their role was to assist the NYPD by securing search warrants, obtaining subpoenas, and interviewing witnesses, ensuring the investigation moved swiftly. Investigators began canvassing the neighborhood, speaking with residents to determine if anyone had noticed suspicious activity. Meanwhile, detectives Burdick and Cosenza sat down with the victim's husband for questioning. In domestic cases, the spouse is always the first person investigators examine. Jonathan Crupi, a 30-year-old teacher at the School for Classics in Brooklyn, shared both his professional and academic journey with Simeonette. The couple was pursuing their master's degrees at the College of Staten Island with hopes of starting a family in the future. A background check revealed no history of criminal activity or anything that raised immediate concern. Investigators pressed Jonathan for a detailed account of his movements that morning, emphasizing the importance of establishing a timeline. He stated that he left home around 7:30 a.m. and drove to the TKTS booth at Metro Tech in Brooklyn to purchase Broadway tickets for their upcoming anniversary. From there, he headed to the School for Classics, where both he and Simeonette taught, to gather materials for their summer school sessions. Afterward, he took his car for an inspection before stopping at a few sneaker stores. Jonathan informed detectives that he had sent multiple texts to Simeonette that morning, asking her to choose a paint color as he planned to visit Home Depot. However, he claimed that she never responded. He provided answers willingly, showing no hesitation. Given the circumstances, investigators approached the conversation carefully, avoiding any accusatory tone. After all, he had just lost his wife. However, at this stage of the investigation, he was undeniably a person of interest. 2 hours after the frantic 911 call, the husband sat inside the precinct, speaking with detectives about the brutal murder of his wife, Simeonette. It's easy to suspect the husband from the start, but a thorough investigation requires looking deeper into the victim's life, uncovering hidden details, speaking with family and friends, and examining every possible lead. Across the borough, a separate team of investigators takes a different approach, sitting down with the Mapes family to gather crucial insights. Detectives uncovered the couple's history, dating back 12 years to their first meeting through a mutual friend. Though they attended the same high school, their paths had never crossed. Simeonette's mother remembered her daughter's excitement after their first date, hoping he would call her back. But from a mother's perspective, she couldn't help but wonder what had sparked her daughter's interest in him. Simeonette's brother remembered him as a comic book fan with a passion for expensive sneakers, always protective of his collection. He wasn't the best-looking guy, but he made Simeonette laugh endlessly. His energy was infectious. He loved to dance and never missed a chance to dance with her. Their bond grew stronger over time, and it was clear they enjoyed every moment together. Married in 2007, they began teaching at the School for Classics in Brownsville, a tough neighborhood. Despite the risks, she was deeply devoted to her students and was committed to making a difference in their lives. Both were pursuing their master's degrees, preparing to take the next step in their careers. She dreamed of starting a family, carefully labeling buckets, baby Crupi, and collecting small trinkets, filling loved ones with excitement. Now, just 2 days before their 5th wedding anniversary, Simeonette, a beloved wife, daughter, and sister, was tragically found dead. Detectives conducted a 3-hour interview with Jonathan Crupi. His demeanor remained flat, showing no signs of tears. However, grief can present itself in different ways. Jonathan is released as detectives continue verifying his story. Meanwhile, across town, another team speaks with Simeonette's family, gathering details about the hours leading up to her murder. Simeonette's mother recalls that on July 4th, the family gathered at a friend's house to celebrate. Holidays were always spent together, filled with swimming, barbecues, and shared moments of joy. Simeonette's brother remembers that she wasn't feeling well and decided to leave the party a little early. Before she left, he gave her a high five and told her, "I love you." That moment would be the last time he saw her. As the interview progresses, investigators push the family to consider potential suspects, asking them to create a list of anyone who might have wanted to harm Simeonette. Her mother struggles to think of a single name, insisting there isn't anyone who would wish her harm. However, her older brother John openly expresses his suspicions about her husband. Jonathan's mood could change in an instant. One moment cheerful, the next easily agitated. Over time, small outbursts became noticeable. As investigators regroup at the precinct, a closer look at the crime scene raises troubling questions. Something about the so-called burglary didn't add up. Valuable items were left untouched. Jewelry, credit cards, and even an engagement ring sat undisturbed. Every drawer and cabinet had been searched, yet nothing was taken. It was as if the intruder wanted to create chaos rather than steal, raising more questions than answers. 2 days after the homicide, detectives retraced Jonathan's steps, scrutinizing his detailed timeline for any inconsistencies. Detectives reviewed surveillance footage from each location, including the School for Classics, where both worked. The video confirmed Jonathan's arrival at 9:28 a.m., just as he had told investigators. At 10:11 a.m., surveillance showed Jonathan at Best Auto Spa, matching his timeline. Detectives verified his car inspection receipt and mileage. After retracing his route, they found an 8 to 10 mile discrepancy, raising concerns. Investigators reviewed Jonathan's timeline to account for the missing miles. Every detail aligns until the final stop, where discrepancies begin to emerge. Jonathan claimed he visited the Home Depot in the Charleston area of Staten Island. Investigators carefully reviewed the video footage for the time Jonathan claimed to be in the parking lot. After multiple viewings, they confirmed that his vehicle never entered the area. The missing stop explains why Jonathan's mileage was 10 miles less than investigators recorded. While skipping a destination doesn't prove guilt, his story wasn't adding up. Now investigators must uncover where he actually went. As investigators planned their next move, a crucial forensic discovery shifted the case. A DNA swab from the sliding glass door handle, left open despite Jonathan's claim that everything was locked, became a key focus. This could have been the entry point for the intruder. However, the test results changed everything. The DNA matched Jonathan Crupi and an unidentified female, not Simeonette. Finding Jonathan's DNA on the sliding glass door wasn't unusual since it was his home. However, the presence of an unidentified female's DNA raised serious questions. Why was it on the handle of a door left ajar? Investigators searched the database for a match to the unidentified female DNA but found none. To gather more insight, they spoke with a school principal who knew both Jonathan and Simeonette. She provided valuable insight, revealing that Simeonette was highly regarded at the school for classics. Wanting Jonathan to join her there, she had pleaded for his hiring, and the school had agreed because of their strong desire to have her on staff. The principal recalled Jonathan mentioning that he had visited the school to collect supplies for summer classes. However, she found this unusual, insisting that no additional books were needed for the course they were teaching. With this new information, investigators turned their attention to Jonathan's presence at the school that morning. A closer look at the surveillance footage revealed him entering with a green computer bag. However, a critical question emerged. Where did the bag go? Jonathan greeted a custodian before heading upstairs and entering a room where he remained for about half an hour. Detectives took immediate action, with Detective Burdick pausing the footage to make calls and determine the significance of that room. After consulting with staff, investigators identified the room as a computer lab. A computer teacher then pointed out the specific computer that had been used. A search warrant and subpoena were issued, and the evidence was submitted to the NYPD Computer Crimes Lab for further investigation. In next few weeks, investigators also seized Jonathan and Simeonette's school laptops. Jonathan's searches were about baseball caps, hip-hop songs, and sneakers for resale. Simeonette's searches focused on in vitro fertilization and marriage counseling, reflecting her plans to start a family. As detectives carefully reviewed the data, one of Simeonette's past Google searches stood out. They found a phone number that had been searched on her computer, and it was also saved in her phone under the contact name Woman. After conducting extensive investigative work on the phone number, detectives traced it back to an escort named Miss Pumpkin. They decided to arrange an interview by calling the number and requesting a date at a local motel. It was a tense moment as they needed to ensure she would actually show up. Investigators waited patiently, and right on cue, Miss Pumpkin walked through the door. They immediately identified themselves and explained the purpose of their visit. Miss Pumpkin agreed to speak with investigators at the local precinct. They wanted to know who she was and what she knew. When shown a photograph of Jonathan Crupi, she recognized him, but under a different name, Mike. What followed was unexpected. She revealed that she had been dating him for 2 years. Jonathan typically arranged meetings with Miss Pumpkin in advance using a disposable phone. But on July 5th, the day of the homicide, he called her last minute, saying he needed to see her immediately. She agreed, meeting him at 12:45 p.m. at the motel. Detectives noted that this matched the time Jonathan had claimed to be arriving at Home Depot, which helped explain the missing mileage from his car. Investigators gathered details of Miss Pumpkin's whereabouts to confirm her alibi, and she cooperated fully, providing all the information they needed. She even volunteered a DNA swab. A comparison was made between her DNA and the unknown female DNA found at the crime scene, and the match confirmed it was Miss Pumpkin. Investigators now had to consider the possibility that Miss Pumpkin was involved. The discovery of her number on Simeonette's phone, combined with Simeonette's search history, made it clear to detectives that she was aware of Jonathan's affair. Investigators also discovered that, in the days leading up to her murder, Simeonette had searched the college website to check the list of graduates and those who had received their master's degrees. The records revealed that Jonathan Crupi had neither graduated nor attended classes. Suspecting that Simeonette may have confided in her family, investigators returned to the Mapes family. Simeonette's mother, Teresa, confirmed their suspicions, recalling a conversation from around July 2nd. She shared, Simeonette called me and said, Mom, I got a letter in the mail saying I graduated with a 3.9. I said, oh, congratulations, honey. Then I asked, how did Jonathan do? She replied, funny thing is, Mom, he didn't get a letter. According to Simeonette's mother, Simeonette had recently discovered that Jonathan had not earned his master's degree, and she planned to confront him about it. Simeonette had been funding his education, using her own money to cover his rent, car payments, and tuition. Teresa grew concerned about Jonathan's behavior, noting his lack of emotion and how something just didn't feel right. Jonathan began using his wife's murder to his advantage, seeking sympathy to get things for free. He even sent a photo of a shoe to someone, with a text saying, someone sent these to me for free because they knew my wife was murdered. Investigators discovered that Jonathan was not only a terrible husband, but also a horrible person. However, there were no eyewitnesses, no murder weapon, and while the circumstantial evidence was stacking up, it still wasn't enough to make a solid case just yet. Detectives visited Jonathan's home to search for more evidence and noticed a closet in the hallway between the entryway and the kitchen. During the initial walkthrough, this closet had been blocked by Simeonette's body. Upon entering the closet, investigators checked the jackets and, after a few minutes, returned with important findings. They had discovered a throwaway cell phone that matched all of Jonathan's contacts with Miss Pumpkin. Additionally, they found his green laptop bag, which contained his personal laptop. Investigators applied for a search warrant to access and search the contents of the computer. While investigators awaited the search warrant, another crucial detail fell into place. In October, the full autopsy report revealed that Simeonette Marza had been murdered in the early morning hours of July 5th. Jonathan had claimed he left at 7:30, but there was no alibi for the early morning hours between 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. when the murder occurred. His carefully crafted timeline for that morning now seemed irrelevant. As for Miss Pumpkin, her alibi during that time was solid, verified through her cell phone and cell site records. There was no evidence to suggest she was physically present in the house where Simeonette was murdered. This left investigators questioning how her DNA could have ended up on the sliding glass door. After reviewing all the evidence, investigators concluded that there was only one logical explanation. Miss Pumpkin's DNA had been transferred to the crime scene by Jonathan through Touch DNA after their hotel rendezvous. Jonathan had been in close contact with Miss Pumpkin, and the transfer of her DNA occurred when he touched the door handle after their encounter. Each new piece of evidence cast further doubt on Jonathan Crupi's account, but it wasn't until the results from his personal laptop that the truth finally emerged. What investigators discovered on his computer was deeply unsettling. Jonathan had searched for phrases like, how to clean up a crime scene, does bleach kill blood, how to suffocate someone, and how to cut a throat. These searches dated back several months, indicating he had been planning the crime for some time. The chilling nature of these searches revealed the true disturbing extent of his intentions, aligned with the injuries and events surrounding Simeonette's death. With this crucial evidence, investigators had built a solid case, presenting a powerful narrative that would set the stage for the jury. Simeonette's mother recalled receiving a call at 6:37 a.m. from Detective Burdick, who said, "We're going to get him." The words hit hard, bringing everything to a screeching halt. It was Jonathan. Simeonette's father expressed the deep pain he felt, saying, "He was family. He and Simeonette lived with us for a couple of years. I wouldn't wish that feeling of betrayal and sorrow on anyone." Police arrested Jonathan Crupi at his parents' house in Brooklyn, New York. Detectives Cosenza and Burdick informed him that it was over, but he showed no reaction. With Jonathan in custody, the family was briefed. It's standard procedure to inform a family in advance about the items that may be presented, particularly those that could be upsetting. The computer Jonathan used at the school revealed that he had been searching pornographic websites. Investigators also discovered that there was a strip club right next door to the school, where Jonathan spent most of his day. He had spent so much money there that they had given him his own area in the club. Investigators uncovered that despite Simeonette paying for Jonathan's degree, he never actually graduated. He would drop her off at college claiming he had classes in another building, only to leave and visit prostitutes. It was later revealed that Jonathan had visited a sex worker immediately after murdering Simeonette, highlighting the disturbing nature of his actions. As the trial approached, law enforcement pieced together their theory of what happened that fateful night. They believed that Simeonette confronted Jonathan about his visits to prostitutes, his failure to attend school, and that she was planning to leave him. In response, Jonathan killed her, staged the crime scene, and fabricated an alibi to cover his tracks. After his motel meetup with Miss Pumpkin, Jonathan returned home and hid his computer bag and burner phone in the hallway closet. The shocking revelation came when investigators realized that Jonathan had climbed over Simeonette's bloodied, lifeless body to stash his throwaway phone and laptop in the closet. In June 2015, 3 years after Simeonette's murder, the trial began. The defense argued, he's a horrible husband, but he's no murderer. Over the next 5 weeks, both sides presented their cases. Then on July 21st, after 3 hours of deliberation, the jury returned with their verdict. Everyone stood as the decision was read. Guilty, guilty, guilty. The family finally found closure, and it brought them a sense of relief like no other. It was the best feeling they could have hoped for. The NYPD worked tirelessly, day and night, to solve this case. They became like family to those affected, and their dedication showed how much they truly cared. It was important to recognize the invaluable role these officers played in seeking justice. 3 months later, Jonathan was sentenced to the maximum penalty of 25 years to life in prison. Simeonette's mother expressed her grief, saying that Jonathan took her little girl from her, and despite Simeonette being 29, she would always be her baby girl. The family created Sissy's Angels as a heartfelt tribute to their daughter. The organization aims to educate young men and women about domestic violence. Simeonette had always taught others how to be a better person and will always remain in their hearts. If you found this story compelling, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more true crime content. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.